Good morning. This is Councilwoman Rebecca Moore. I'm here for Caitlin Shea's Philomena Bakery. I just had to dial in this morning. I was having some issues with WebEx.
There we go. Thank you. So our chair, Kelly Brett's off today, so I am the substitute chair today. All right. So with that, it's 9:30. And
Go ahead and read the preamble.
go ahead and read the preamble.
Good morning, my name is Liz Kukla, and I'm going to read the preamble for you this morning. In compliance with notification requirements of the city's open meeting law, and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976. Notice that this meeting has been published.
Again for some reason. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kukla. Do we have any postponements or withdrawals?
Can I, do you want me to call the roll first?
Yes, please.
Ms. Brown.
Present.
Ms. Holzer.
Present.
Ms. Roca. Present. Ms. Bates.
Present.
Ms. Britt is absent today. So, Madam Chair, we have a quorum with 4 members.
Excellent.
Madam Chair, we do not have any postponements or withdrawals at this time.
Okay. Do we have any
We do-
council people present?
We have one that is calling user number 2, and that is Councilwoman Moore.
All right.
She has 1 case.
See you.
All right, and I believe Councilman Moore announced herself, so we'll begin with calendar number 23-067. Oh, excuse me.
Sorry, that's for me. I'm waiting on my architect who's supposed to provide a presentation. Late.
You said Councilman
I'll do my best.
Okay,
Can hold off.
okay, we'll just loop back. We have Councilman Slife then.
Anything else?
Hi. Hi, Caitlin. I am here. I don't know if you, I was having a hard time hearing you, but I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Okay, all right.
Like to read,
You ready?
Oh, sorry, I'm sure I didn't mean to.
Yes.
I think we thought we were a little
You
later
ready?
on the agenda, but yeah, I think, Caitlin, are you ready to go?
All right.
We're good. All right.
So, anybody here for this case, if you could come forward into the front row?
And sorry, this is Councilwoman Moore. I've had some tech issues this morning, but I'm here and I believe Slavic Village Development is trying to sign on as well.
Yes, I just got a text from Slavic Village and they're having a hard time signing. She asked for the signing link, which I don't have.
Oh, whoa.
He's good.
All right,
Would you like me to read?
Yeah.
All right.
go ahead.
Our first case is calendar number 23-067. This is at 3696 East 69th Street. Caitlin Shea, owner, proposes to establish use as a retail/commercial bakery, office, and white box space in the rear part of a building for unspecified retail/commercial use in a B1 two-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are 3. With that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Brown for the oaths.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I do need the next slide. I don't have it with me today.
And Maurice has stepped away.
That's
1
right.
second.
So I am swearing in all who are present today and virtually for this case. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand. Say, I do. State your name and your address, please.
Caitlin Shea, 6815 Chambers Avenue.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. And Adam?
Adam Rose Kelly, Architecture Office, 5401 Hamilton Avenue. I do.
And Marilyn has raised her hand, so she's been able to sign in. Can you swear in, Marilyn?
Yes, I do. Marilyn Moshinsky, Slavic Village Development, 5620 Broadway Avenue.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present?
Yeah, this is the Councilwoman Rebecca Moore, 4708 Cullen Drive, and I do.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else? Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Kukla, history of the property?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. In our Records Administration Office, we found that there were additions to the building in 1916 and 1917. And then 1920, a permit was issued to install an oven in a bakery located in this building. And then, Madam Chair, we have not much information in the more recent history. In 2010, there were exterior alterations to brick veneer face on the property. And then there are no variances on file, Madam Chair. Thank you. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Could we have the legal standard, please?
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting use variances and an area variance from the parking requirements of zoning code. To obtain the use variances, the appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship, particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, the appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granted variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Okay. Excuse me. All right, Ms. Shea, would you like to tell us what you'd like to do?
Yeah, I intend to reopen a bakery in this spot. I have a small retail component, and also a large wholesale, component. Not larger than a retail component. I currently operate a bakery out of a location space, 55th and St. Clair. So it's an ongoing business that I hope to move into this space so I can expand. But I also live across the street, so it's in my own best interest not to make this disruptive. There's plenty of parking. There are, this morning I counted 4 empty lots as well as 3 vacant homes on the street. So during the workday, there's ample. The neighbors are quiet and seem to be in support of the project. Haven't had any problems with it there almost 2 years.
And what percentage would you say is going to be retail and what percentage will be wholesale?
I believe it's going to be, my business will be using the front half, the historical older part of the building. And on the first floor, it'll be about 25% retail and the rest will be used for bakery production.
Great. Okay. Councilwoman, typically the council people like to go last. Do you want to speak now or wait until other comments are made?
No, I can jump in. I'll issue my enthusiastic support for this project. I've reviewed the plans that Ms. Shea and her architect have put together. I think they would be a fantastic use of this space and a return to its historic use as a bakery. Caitlin's been very involved with the community, and we've had a close watch on this project, and I'm in strong support of it.
Great. Mr. Kelly, as the architect, do you have anything else to add?
I do. Is it possible to share a brief presentation?
No.
No. Okay. I would love
Sorry.
to show, I would love to show you the vision that Caitlin and I have for this building in the neighborhood. So that's a little unfortunate that I can't do that, but that's fine. This building is a Flemish design, and it's got a lot of history to it. You can see that just by looking at it. I think even if you don't know Flemish architecture, which I didn't coming into this, you can kind of see the history of that in the facade. It's very unique. These pictures are really bad in terms of showing the contrast of what's actually going on there with the brick. There are some problems with the building and the facade that I'm not going to go into great detail about, but I mean, ultimately, you can see on the front facade, it says Chambers Bakery. You can't read the Chambers. But when we came into this project, we were under the assumption that the Chambers Bakery was essentially kind of the previous use. I am now under the understanding that somebody else had bought the building and used it for storage. But I think bringing this back to a bakery is just incredible. The fact that this is happening. The possibility for this to happen in this neighborhood. I think it's, we've got a beautiful facade that we're going to put on this. You can kind of see it through the drawings, but color renderings would of course be a lot better. We're giving her an element of privacy through the facade so that you're not seeing directly into a baking kitchen, but yet using polycarbonate translucent material that allows you to see something. So you're kind of aware of the retail aspect of the facade. The building is clearly designed as a retail building, at least on the 69th Street. So I think bringing it back to that just makes a lot of sense, and prohibiting this due to the zoning code, I think just doesn't make sense. I've got some pictures of daytime parking that show the streets completely clear. So parking is not going to be an issue during the day. Her business is open roughly from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So those types of things, I don't think there's any real downside to this project. Caitlin's a great person. She runs a great business. It's a vegan bakery. It's something that I think we need more of. Yeah, in an effort to keep it brief, I'll just leave it at that. But there's, I think, a lot more we could talk about in terms of what the benefits are in Cleveland. Offer some kind of element of historic retail within a residential district. I think it's a great thing. So that's all.
Thank you for that description. The stepped facade sort of gives away its influence and origin. So it's an interesting building to be working with. And you mentioned the hours of operation. What days are you going to be operating?
There will be staff there Monday through Saturday. We'll only be open for retail operations probably Thursday through Saturday, because those are the high demand days. And those hours will also be tracking something like 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or something.
Okay.
And there will be approximately, including myself, 4 to 5 staff people during the day.
Okay. All right, for purposes of our motion, we need more specific hours. So typically what we'll do is we'll give you a margin of an hour before your 9 a.m. and an hour after your 6 p.m., just in case, for whoever is making the motion today. Okay. Marilyn from the CDC, would you like to chime in on this?
I just say ditto to everybody. I was born and raised literally across the street from this building. In fact, my first job was at Chambers Bakery. My parents ran the bakery. So the street is known to have, especially for the holidays, it would be bumper to bumper cars. So the residents that still live on the street that have been there for 50 years have come up to me and have been thrilled to hear that the bakery is coming back. So as a CDC and also representing the neighbors too, they're thrilled for the project.
That's nice that you have such a personal connection. Are you going to be doing like coffee service as well as just selling bakery, or?
Maybe coffee, but it's not going to be a cafe.
Okay. Just takeout, carry out only. All right. Okay, board members, any questions?
Yes, it's a wonderful project. My question is, will you use the entire building, or do you at some point envision renting space to others?
I do.
What's the full
The back
vision?
half that looks more like a warehouse. Next year, hopefully, I'm going to get that for rental too. I envision like a tradesperson or something, not a whole lot of employees. And probably my vision is a woodworker or an electrician who needs a warehouse space.
So that's the only part that you will rent out?
That's the only, yeah.
Okay.
My business will use the front half, the 2-story building, and then I'll rent it.
Thank you. That's it, Madam Chair.
Great. Any other questions or comments, board?
Madam Chair, I have a question about the parking. So your staff will also be parking on the street, staff and customers?
Yeah, I do have, like I said, I live literally across the street and I have a deep parking space that I have single using to go off the roof. So if it gets to be a problem, the staff will park.
And I have a question for the city too, but I think we might have skipped them.
Yes, we have not asked Maurice for input as yet.
Maurice Rollins, City Planning Commission, I have to agree with basically the applicant, CDC, and the councilwoman. We have a ton of these kinds of vacant buildings across the city, the neighborhoods. And I think it's fantastic that they're bringing this back to life and putting it back to the use that it used to be. So we're in full support of these variances.
I thought you might be. All right.
One follow-up question for you, Madam Chair, if I may. For Mr. Rowlands, on the third variance, the non-conforming use, shall not, the non-conforming use of the building which has been discontinued shall not be non-conforming again. So it was a bakery, and then what happened in between that is now making it not conforming again?
After a certain amount of time of it being closed, then it reverts back to, you lose
So
the
the passage.
ability to be a bakery. Now, so that's why they're back.
Thank you.
So Madam Chair, I could speak to that a little bit more, if you don't think. So we have record that in 1920, An oven was installed into the building, and then the zoning was established in 1929. And so we don't have any records of it actually being vacated, but, you know, if it's been a certain amount of time in the community and the council people, and it just becomes known that it's been vacated. So, and the zoning is currently 2 families, so that's why we would have to do the.
Thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying.
Okay, hearing no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, so, hearing the comments from the owner, the councilwoman of 696 East 69th Street, I move we approve this calendar item and allow for operations to exist Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. For both wholesale and retail sales. And with that, that's my motion.
Great, thank you. Could I have a second, please?
Madam Chair, Board Member Roca seconds.
Thank you. Ms. Roca with the second. Ms. Kukla, would you like to call the roll, please?
Ms. Holzer,
Yes.
Ms. Roca,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey.
Yes.
Calendar number 23-067 is granted. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send the opponent a letter.
Good luck to you. It's vegan, is it? Oh, all right, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, do we have Councilman Slave still on? Who's Councilman Slave still on?
We also have Councilman Kelly, Danny Kelly for the West.
Right, who was on first? All right, gentlemen, was Councilman Slave or Councilman Kelly here first?
That's a great question.
All right, we're gonna go to Councilman Slave. Yes, for 23, calendar 23-045.
All right.
Okay.
Our next case is calendar number 23-045. This is at 4975 Rocky River Drive. Cam's Enterprises LLC proposes to expand a convenience store to include new gas island and canopy in a local retail zoning district. The appellant seeks relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are 3. There is a note here that there is also a lot consolidation required. This case was originally postponed from April 3rd, 2023 at the request of the appellant. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Brown for the oath.
Nice. I am swearing in all who are present for this case. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand, say I do, your name and your address.
Yeah, Tony Coyne, 1100 Lakeside Avenue. I'm land use counsel at Speedy. The owner is Josiah, who's here. Malik Wam from my firm is also present, and the main presenter will be Patrick, who's the project architect.
Thank you. I need each gentleman. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Malik Kawam, Mansur Gavin, counsel for applicant. I do. Josiah, 14027 Lakewood Heights Boulevard.
Jim Potacek, 12506 Edgewater Drive, Lakewood, Ohio, 44107.
Thank you. And joining us virtually, if you would please swear or affirm your testimony. You're on mute, Councilman.
Still on mute.
No.
I
There you
do.
go.
601 Lakeside Avenue.
Thank you, Council. None.
Anyone else?
My name is Robert Fuchs. I'm at 16908 Bradgate Avenue, Cleveland 44111.
Rosemary Moudry, West Park Cams, 17407 Lorraine Avenue, I do.
Patrick Lippi, 4060 Rocky River Drive, I do.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. All right, could we have the legal standard, please?
History.
History of the property first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property was originally zoned general retail in 1929. In 2009, it was changed to the current local retail and pedestrian retail overlay district. In our records administration office, we found that in 1923, a permit was issued to erect a one-story garage. In 1977, a permit was issued to erect a grocery store. 1978, a permit was issued to demolish a service station on the site. There are several variances on file. In 1965, a variance was refused to install two pump islands on the property. In 1965, a variance was issued to erect a 100 by 66 sign pole. Then Madam Chair, in calendar number 77-173 in 1977, this board denied a variance to erect a gas station and a food store due to yard issues at the time. And then in calendar 88-197, this board granted a variance to convert from store to store and gas station. And then in the more recent history, in 1988, well, somewhat recent, a chain link fence was erected. Wall sign was erected in 1994. There was, again, exterior signage in 1995. And then from 2006 to 2021, food licenses were issued to the property. And that's all that I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the Board of Health is requesting a use variance and area variances from the minimum distance, fencing, landscaping, setback requirements, zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in unnecessary hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economic or peaceful use of the property without the variance. Will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, the appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other neighbor buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning.
Thank you. All right, are you, Mr. Coyne?
Yes.
Presenting
Yes.
today?
Yeah, and let me introduce the team again, just to lay out how we'll have a presentation. Just for the record, the 25-foot setback and the parking space setback is no longer required. It's modified the site plan, so that won't be necessary. And we do recognize we still have to go to City Planning Commission. The site itself will be compliant with the other standards in the general retail for a gas use. So that's kind of what our goal was when we did the site plan. What I'd like to do is have Mr. Potacek, who's the project architect, address the site plan in some detail, where we got to after a meeting. We had one community meeting over Zoom. We also met with the councilman and Ms. Buttery from the CDC and went over some of their concerns. We modified the site plan. We'd like to present that. And then Jose, who's the owner, who has other businesses in Northeast Ohio similar to this. He's also a resident of the neighborhood, and he's had a very successful business operation. This is unique in that it includes adding gas pumps, but also to the charging stations to the use of the business, because it is a convenience store with hopefully a division of gas. There will also be other tenant opportunities in this space, and you'll hear that from Mr. Potacek. But all of the operational issues, any questions we're going to have Mr. Zayed answer those questions for you. So I'd like to take the time now to have Mr. Potacek present the site plan.
Before you do that, Madam Chair, may I ask, do we have the new site plans that show these modifications? Okay. Can you put them up while they're talking? That's it? Well, I can't, there's not enough detail.
I imagine they're gonna go through.
There's a presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. So basically, just to reorient everyone, there are two parcels in question that are proposed to be aggregated. One is the existing former 7-Eleven project, which is at the corner of Larchwood, and then below it is the existing Cone Zone. Mr. Zayed bought both of them with the intention of kind of revisiting how they functionally work, because if we go to the next site plan right now, I'm sorry, existing conditions, just to kind of show. So the driveway in the lower right is sort of the two-way drive that actually put people in a queue to use the drive-through scenario for Cone Zone. So you went around the building and then queued up alongside the building, which meant your traffic ended up perfect if it's two separate parcels, but one where you're trying to put people into the site and gas and everything else, it created a traffic kind of nightmare. So when we kind of first looked at it, we said, well, if we could reutilize the site differently and combine the uses as an addition to it, then you could unify the traffic to kind of simplify it. So if you want to go ahead. So this is sort of the existing conditions of what we had suggested might be the start of a demo that basically we would look to kind of revisit the removal of the Cone Zone. And then as you see the footprint traced out where there's number 7 there, that would be the future footprint of the entire building, which would allow circulation to go beyond to the south at that point. So next slide, please. So in the conversation then.
Excuse me one second. Maurice, are we able to enlarge that anymore?
Sure, I think that's a little bit.
So this is sort of
Great, thank you.
this is sort of where we started, and then post conversations with CAMS and with councilmen where we were taking this. There was a request that we consider removing that drive apron altogether to kind of better segregate the automotive traffic from the residential, being that there's a direct resident just to the east of the property. So in looking at how the traffic flowed, we said, yes, that's viable as an alternative to close that apron off on the Larchmont at that point. So next one.
So that's being eliminated completely?
That we're agreeing to do that. So this was sort of the first slide of how the traffic was supposed to go through. So the intention was that south of the existing convenience store, we would add 2 small retail units. The N1 was kind of envisioned to kind of be the replacement for Cone Zone, that it would probably be an ice cream venue that could then offer a one-way loop through the site with a drive-through with a menu board that would be facing away from the residential. The gas in the front servicing with those, some parking along the front for the 2 residential, and then the egress from that would be going through and up to the north to exit to Larchwood as well. And then secondarily, there was a potential of having a window tucked up at the front corner of the convenience store as an addition if you, as I talked about doing an app where you could do mobile pickup. So, so functionally 2 drive-throughs, but one is one that's more of a standard drive-through configuration where you order something, pick it up. The other was probably more app-based, where you're just going through, hey, I need something that the store sells that I can order and then just pull up to the window and do it without having to get out of the car at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But the circulation allowed that we could go out to Larchwood and simply by closing it off, which would be the next one actually. So we could landscape that corner and hold that basically so that the drive-through completely circulates around that condition. There was a request in the conversation about doing things that were more pedestrian friendly. Like if the goal of this neighborhood is to encourage that walkable pedestrian configuration, then what we started to look at was, well, where could we add something that was part of the existing context of the Cone Zone? So if in the case of the Cone Zone, there was a nice little patio space out front, you could picture that in the summer, a nice warm day, everyone sitting out there, people queuing up in line. So we went back to the well and said, well, what if that was only one venue? And if we're just kind of moving the Cone Zone to attach to the building, we could do a smaller footprint and we could kind of pull the facade back and create kind of the second incarnation of the Cone Zone at that point. So basically we have a flexible footprint that allows us to kind of balance the footprint needs of the ice cream store along with the needs for creating some patio space and pedestrian queue up space with a pickup window off the front. we can maintain the drive-through, maintain the one-way around, maintain even the pickup window that could be worked off of an app at that point with little impact to it, but preserving both the residents by closing off that egress condition. Everyone just circles back around. And then basically by modifying to have one retail, we can start adding back these pedestrian-friendly amenities to this as well. So that's sort of the pivot that we marched along as a postscript to the conversation. So if I go to the next one then. So this was sort of where we were before. And also important to note too, that in the concept of this, we had always said, look, there will be people who are starting to have adoption of EVs. We're putting 2 EV spaces sort of in the southwest corner of this. The provision at this point is that if we are doing gas, that at some point in time, the economy is going to flip and the viability of going to EVs for everyone is probably something that's going to be incentivized or just to react to market conditions when that is the reality. Those pumps can also then be charger stations as well in the future, so we can accommodate 8 charging stations under the canopy since there'll be investment for that. I just drove the turnpike yesterday. They're putting all these Tesla charging stations. Good luck if you don't have an umbrella because they're all out there. But if the investment's already made in the canopy, then you have a covered charging station, all the more encouragement for someone to stop, charge the car, go in, get an ice cream, pick up something from the convenience store. That is sort of the driver for traffic, to do this as well.
So are the EV stations now the 2 angled in the lower right?
Yes.
Okay.
Lower left.
Lower left. Okay.
Sorry, there's one handicap spot
Sorry.
that would share along with, I'm sorry, it's a little hard to read.
Yeah, what's on the lower right?
So lower right are just additional parking spaces.
And the dumpster.
Oh, thank you, that's better. And yes, and the dumpster for it as well. The Cone Zone site has this kind of extension behind the residence. So we figured that would be, we could landscape that from the residents, on the side, and actually, house a fully enclosed kind of compliant condition for the trash.
And what's our driveway width here? Do we have contingency for a vehicle to bypass if they decide they don't want
Yes,
to
Madam
stop
Chair.
at the window?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes.
Okay, great,
For full circulation around the
great,
whole thing.
okay. Cool.
And we did balance, so the original review did highlight the condition that we wanted to establish the 8-foot buffer to the residents. We did kind of revisit that, so that is compliant all along to buffer that residential condition from what's functionally going to be the backside of a building at that point. But right now, in summer, you'd have Cone Zone traffic coming in. This would at least limit it to those people who are primarily going to be using the pickup window, everyone else in the convenience store. So there's actually should be less impact on the residents when this, moves forward with, to be this. So, because then you're pushing everyone to the front of the site along Rocky River Drive. So, all right, and then the next slide then. So this is sort of this is our pivot. So basically closing off, landscaping the corner so where we close off the apron at that point, still maintaining the 2 EV chargers down below, and then revisiting this as a single 1,500 to 1,700 square foot addition with that outdoor patio. Again, some discovery for how that wants to look, how that wants to function, but this was our kind of quick pivot to meet the moment for this presentation at this point. So, and obviously extending the landscaping around here as well. That is something that we want to. If this is sort of the first stage, you've seen other investments that are starting to happen, but there's a lot of vacant storefronts along Rocky River.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this investment, our hope, is a catalyst for future. If all of a sudden, well, he's investing, what does he know that others don't about this? So the hope is that we're, and just for people visiting Cleveland, Rocky River Drive is a primary, entry, to Cleveland for those people coming in from the airport. So if you start to see businesses that embrace well lit, landscaped, whatever, this will be a destination of choice is our hope. So, and I think the next one, these are some of the aspirational images that was our start point for kind of what do we want this to look like. Next slide then. The interior, light, bright, airy, clean. That's sort of what the envisioned goal is for this as well. Next slide. So this is sort of kind of the overview of our first imagining of what this is going to look like. This is basically placing the kind of 4-pump station. You can see the EV on the back corner. And then this was intending to revisit what the aesthetics of the existing C-store look like, and then adding the 2 retail on the side. So there's a series of these if you want to go to the next one. This is sort of the modification. So we're doing these kind of the before and after almost. This is the pivot. You can't see the closure except for a little hint of the curve on the back. The suggestion is to remove the pole sign, put a monument sign on the corner. And then we've got a single tenancy that you can see for the ice cream store, and then a small pickup window just behind the gas canopy. There'll be a next couple of views here too that will spell it out a little cleaner.
So we're going with the monument sign as opposed to this signage?
This would be part of the pivot, yes.
Okay, great.
We had held this originally because it is a nice, corner anchor point, but I know that from the city's larger goals, no. So.
You got it.
Pole sign removed. Basically, you can see kind of the secondary statement for the secondary tenant, the small, you can see through the canopies, the secondary pickup window as well. Next slide. So this is better. This is sort of at the corner where the monument sign will go. This was sort of the first with the 2 tenancies. You can see the EV charger. Next slide. So Speedy as a monument statement at that point, and you can see kind of the umbrellas start to show up, the pickup window. And again, nice primary statement for the convenience store holding its own identity, and then the secondary one for the ice cream store.
Okay.
And then again, a before, and then the next one, and after. Okay, and then, again, this is a better one that shows we just don't have the people with their ice cream. We were short on time to get this back by Wednesday. And
we can imagine that.
This just basically kind of tries to paint the larger picture of what's around in the context of this. So there are other gas stations, other convenience stores in the neighborhood, but in this half-mile radius, there really isn't. The red dot is us, and then some of the other ones are just convenience stores that don't have gas, and there is still the closed Valero kind of down the street from our side as well. So. Which is set up for gas, but is not functioning. So doesn't fill that need right now either. So, and unfortunately, some of the other locations just have not been reinvested in at all, and they do look tired, and they don't paint the best portrait and welcoming kind of entry into the city at this point. So our hope is that this would be a better first place. In fact, here's the kind of the blow up of those. So
and where are we in relation to the animal hospital?
Just right next door.
Right next door.
They're building the new building just
right.
south
Okay.
of Cones.
All right.
They're using our park. With
yeah.
Using our park. Good guys. Nice park.
Well, they've been before us, so yeah. Okay.
And again, just a lot of vacant stuff. So.
Okay.
So if I could I'll bring it to a close. This is a variance, and there are standards to secure a variance under Duncan. One of the questions is with this project, without this yield a reasonable return. What you can see with the other convenience stores and generally in the city, the provision of gas, let alone an EV charger, is going to help, which is going to be an extremely beneficial use to make sure that this convenience store is successful. We think that's really important. I don't think the variance is really substantial. For several decades, there was gas station pumps in this location. Obviously, the zoning code was changed, which is why we're here. So the essential character of the neighborhood really isn't going to change from what was there, because for 30 or 40 years, there were gas pumps in that location and auto repair, which we're not doing. Would the variance adversely affect the delivery of governmental services, water, sewer, garbage? No, not at all. And in fact, this would be a substantial investment. There's no subsidy provided here, so it's going to be a benefit to the schools and all groups. So we'll also be creating some additional jobs as well. Did the owner purchase the property? Some of these issues, yes, we're aware of that, but he also thought that given the fact that the zone code also had the drive-through and the fact that he was going to build all new construction, this seemed to be a worthwhile business venture for him in the city of Cleveland. Whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some other method other than this variance, we're not sure how else you could do that if you're going to provide pumps. I also know for the record that the EV charging issue is something the city's got to start to look at. That's becoming a real issue for a lot of businesses because an EV charger, as you know, doesn't take 3 or 4 minutes it takes to fill a gas tank. It takes as much as 35, 45 minutes if it's a supercharger to make it worthwhile. So you're seeing other businesses, particularly restaurants, quick service restaurants, having that available so that you can go in, get a sandwich, get a cup of coffee, get an ice cream cone, and take some time so your car can charge. Whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. You know, all of the requirements for the setback are being complied with. Under the general retail, we're adopting the same setback issues. So the side yard setback, landscape buffer, fencing, we're doing everything consistent to be accommodating. So we believe it's reasonable for this investment in the city to take place, and that's why we're here. So if there are any questions about operational issues, Joe can answer them. Otherwise, we request the board to grant the variance.
Question. Is the Speedy your brand or is that a franchise?
It's my brand.
Okay, so the other Speedy stations that are in the Cams, West Park area
Yes.
are also yours?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anyone else on the team want to speak at this point?
I'll say one thing. Yeah, Joe Zayed, Cleveland resident, born and raised, and I just want to say one thing. My whole life, I've had an eye, you know, like a big supporter of Cleveland, and I want to see Cleveland rise. So just to go after Caitlin, right, made her presentation, when she was making her presentation, and I seen that building, I know that area. We have a business in that area. Inside of me, my heart was doing jumping jacks because just like I saw these two vacant properties, and I'm like, you know what? I think I could do something here to better my city, to make it look good. And when I see other people do it, it's just, I really believe that we need support in this city and to invest money into the city. Because I went to college here, went to college at John Carroll, and a lot of my friends, they left this city to go find opportunities elsewhere, whether it be Columbus or Chicago or New York or whatever the case may be. To me, Cleveland is the best city in the world. I'm well traveled, and I really would like the opportunity to make this investment, to make this corner back what it is. We have a good reputation in the city. It's not just gas stations that I do different types of redevelopment. We like to buy it, whether it's an apartment building or abandoned house or abandoned building. That's what I like to do to bring it back because it makes me proud that it's just a piece of the puzzle to revive the city back to what, when I hear, you know, when from elders back in the 60s, 50s, 40s, Cleveland was the place to be, top 5 city in the nation. And with our location, central location in the Midwest, I don't see why not. Why can't we be a Chicago? My wife's from Chicago, and I go see what happened, like what's going on over there. Why can't Cleveland be that? And that's basically what I wanted to say. I would love the opportunity to redevelop this property. I've done it before. What you see on that picture, what you're gonna get or better, and it's gonna be a good operation, no riffraff, lighted, well maintained, and we have about 80 to 100 employees. About 80 of our employees are like long-term employees, only like 20 to 30%, you know, revolving door, you get that. We're family oriented. So if you work with us, even as a contractor, as a lawyer, as an architect, you can see that it's a family thing. So our neighbors over here, even though a lot of them are for it. When we had the community meeting, we had a lot of great feedback. We're here for the community because we're part of the community. I live in this ward. I've been living here for 7 years. I've raised 3 kids. I have 3 beautiful children in this ward. So I am an investor here, but I'm also part of the community, and that's just all I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
So how many stations do you have at this point?
I have 17.
17 gas stations.
17 gas stations. Yes.
Okay, all right. And you mentioned you had a community meeting. Did you have one or more than one or?
We had one community meeting. It was remote.
Zoom meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a couple months ago, like before the zoning meeting.
Okay, all right. Okay, we had several residents who swore in. So would one of you like to go first?
Madam Chair, if I could ask a favor, this is Councilman Slife.
Yes.
I have to log off physically and switch over to my phone in about 15 minutes to get to my kids. So if it would be okay if I spoke just briefly, and then if I have to switch devices, it'll be a little less disruptive.
Certainly, Councilman. Typically, council people like to go last, but I'm happy to accommodate your request. So go ahead.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I saw one of the slides. I did submit a letter outlining my opposition to the granting of the variance. And I'd like to begin by just kind of setting the stage, because I don't want us to be falling victim to any kind of false dilemma. There are aspects of this presentation that I think are really compelling. Any installation of EV, I'm enthusiastically in favor of that. I think it's a valid conversation to discuss the future of the cone zone. It's been vacant for a number of years at this point. It's a design review district. So as it comes to, advocating specifically for a building demolition or curb cuts or the site plan, I think it's just a little getting ahead of ourselves to come down on one side or the other. But it's a valid conversation. But ultimately, the variance is for the gas pumps, and the gas pumps are what is giving me, the Development Corporation, and a number of the most immediate neighbors a strong degree of hesitation. Essentially, I agree, this is a very auto-centric corridor. We are working to try to overcome that and have this be a more walkable, more neighborhood engaged street, and not confident by any means that the installation of additional gas pumps would achieve that. Now, about a year ago, the Development Corporation and I sat down with Mr. Zayed, and we're pretty clear with him at that point that in order to open this business with gas pumps, that would require a variance. And our recommendation at that time was to proceed with a community meeting in the very near future. What occurred was the decision to move forward with opening a convenience store within the current zoning, which is allowed. So to the degree that the hardship is that there's no economic feasibility to the property without granting the variance, I don't see any economic hardship because a business is currently operating. I know that gas pumps may be more advantageous, but that is not the standard, in my opinion, that the Board of Zoning Appeals can rule on. Just lastly, and then I'll wrap it up, there's a very high density of gas stations on the far west side. Again, I agree that we need more EV, but I'm not confident that this is in the long-term interest of the neighborhood to install more gas stations. It's effectively impossible to get from anywhere in this neighborhood onto the interstate without passing at least one other gas station. So we are only competing amongst ourselves, contaminating the soil in the process. And then my last point, and this is not a criticism of Mr. Zayed or any business owner in particular, because nobody wants there to be police calls for service at their property. But it's very clear that people seeking to do bad things seek out gas stations. So I know when it comes to nearby residents worried about lighting, worried about safety, worried about other things, as you compound all of these items onto each other, it causes the immediate property owners and myself to be wary of approving any variance that's going to install gas pumps. Now, a high quality convenience store with good food and potentially some new retail, some EV charging stations, that's all great, but those things can happen without gas pumps being installed. Thank you.
Okay. We have your letter in hand also, Councilman.
Thank you.
All right, we have, I will loop back to the residents that swore in. Would you like to, one of you, go ahead and speak now?
If I may, I probably live farther than the other from this location than the other folks. My name is Bob Fuchs. I've lived in this community pretty much all my life. I walked to school down Rocky River Drive for years, going to the local elementary school and the local junior high. I know that stretch of road well, okay? I don't live very far away from it now. I've been in this house for over 20 years. I've been in other houses in the area. My point in coming forward and offering my input in this is that the gas station issue, to me, it's unnecessary. From where I live, which is a little closer to Cam's Corner, I can walk to a gas station in less than 10 minutes to one and maybe 15 minutes to another, and that's walking. And as Councilman's letter shows, and as the neighborhood is, there are plenty of gas stations around. They bring with it the traffic, which the store owner does seek, but they also bring with it a lot of other issues that I'm not comfortable with. The business owner here, as he indicated, he has 17 gas stations. I know there's 7 liquor licenses in his name personally, and I know his family has others. So I understand the family component to the business. I don't see where it's an unnecessary hardship, given all the other businesses he has, and that this store there has been operating for a long time. The one thing I did notice that in 1965, when the property was transferred from Standard Oil, there was a deed restriction on the smaller parcel, on the, let's refer to it as the cone zone parcel, prohibiting sales of gasoline and petroleum products. I don't know if that's still in effect or not, but there is a deed restriction. I can email it to somebody if somebody's interested. I support small businesses. I've always supported small businesses. I don't think the gas station is a necessary addition to this neighborhood. It doesn't add anything. That's my testimony.
Thank you, sir. Before I proceed to the CDC, was there anyone else, a resident, that wanted to speak? All right.
Sorry, I just didn't have my mic on there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, could you state your name, please?
My name is Patrick Lippi, and I live at 4060 Rocky River Drive. So I live immediately across the street from the property. And I guess, my testimony today is I'm appreciative of all the work that these guys are doing to turn the neighborhood around. I love having a good welcome sign coming into Cleveland, but as a member of the neighborhood, as someone who's going to live directly across the street from what's potentially going in, and as someone who plans to raise a family in this neighborhood, I object. I don't support the proposal. And there's really 3 reasons that I object to the proposal. The first one, kind of like the councilman pointed out, is just a concern about crime. When I moved into the neighborhood a year ago with my fiance, we wanted to move to West Park for its safety. It's a neighborhood known for its safety. We wanted to move here to raise a family. But gas stations bring along crime. I don't think that's really shocking to anyone. Just a couple weeks ago, the gas station at the Shell at Rocky River Drive in Lorraine was robbed at gunpoint. I'm happy to share the article from 19 Action News detailing that. It isn't anything with Speedy. It's just what happens at gas stations. We don't want to raise kids directly across the street from that. The second concern is environmental concerns. Again, if we want to raise a family here, we don't want to have potential gas leaks from a gas station. We're aware that one of the Speedy gas stations in 2022 apparently had some leaks in Parma last year that forced nearby residents to take certain safety precautions. Just with young kids being directly across the street, that's never anything we want to put our kids through. And the last thing is just increased traffic. Right now, Rocky River Drive is already a very, very busy road. Sometimes just turning out of our driveway or turning from Larchwood left onto Rocky River Drive, it can take as long as 2 to 3 minutes with how many cars are going back and forth. And just putting in another gas station when we already have several gas stations within walking distance just brings in more cars, more traffic, makes it more condensed than it already is. So again, really support these guys wanting to turn around the neighborhood. I just don't think a gas station is what is best for a neighborhood that people want to live in safely and raise a family. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone else?
Madam Chair, I do have 2 letters.
Okay, would you like to?
There's one letter from a James Powett, and he's opposed to it for similar reasons, traffic and crime issues. And then another letter from a Dana Rio, and again, seems that there are crime statistics in here as well as specific cases that are mentioned, so they are also opposed. And they do mention that the street is already busy and they're worried about the increased traffic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rosemary from the CDC.
Sure, and Ms. Kukla, if I could just ask, I believe before it got postponed, there was another resident who had worked to put together a letter on behalf of about 10 residents. So I just wanted to make sure they may not have understood if they needed to resubmit that when it got postponed, but I wanted to make sure that, you know, that had been submitted and it was acknowledged here.
Madam Chair, I'll go through the file. I didn't see it right off the bat, or I would have mentioned it. So I will search through the file if you wanted to go forward with her statements.
Yes, go ahead, Rosemary.
Sure. I just want to kind of reiterate, I think, a lot of things have already been said. We appreciate Mr. Zayed's investment in the neighborhood and are interested in seeing additional retail and things like that. We, as an organization, are working towards making the neighborhood more walkable. We have been hosting a series of community meetings about, what people love about their neighborhood, what are their challenges, what they want to see more of. And one of the challenges that comes up is sort of the auto-centric nature of Rocky River Drive, wishing that Rocky River Drive was more walkable, had less businesses that were dominated by auto. So I think, just in reflecting on what we've heard from the most immediate residents and, what's coming out of the community meetings, about the neighborhood in general, this is just not a use that gets us closer to that vision for Rocky River Drive. And I think, it's important to recognize that, when it got zoned local retail, that's something that, the community had to support in the first place. And so, I think it's important to kind of honor those wishes of why those rezonings occurred. And I think it's, also important to recognize that, for residents living in this area, this does not provide a new service to them. If they drive north or south to exit the neighborhood, they have to pass an existing gas station. So this is not a situation where there's a lack of a service that is providing something new to the neighborhood that they can't already access. So again, very supportive, love, the attempt to make, a patio and expand retail, and are very supportive of that aspect of the project. Would love to continue to work with them on that, but we cannot support gas pumps. Thank you.
So in your statement, you mentioned about making the area Rocky River Drive specifically more walkable. Is there actually a master plan in the works between the CDC, the council person, and city planning for the reimagination of Rocky River Drive? Is that already established?
So there have been some iterations in the past looking at Rocky River Drive, and I believe we've had some conversations with city planning about doing another NOACA TLCI, and I don't know if planning can kind of update. We had been working with Mr. Davenport and others looking at putting that together, and I'm not quite sure where that stands, but There have been some previous iterations in which they were looking at making it less car-centric, but we have not completed a new plan yet, no.
Okay. And have you met with Mr. Zayed in this process?
Yes,
In terms of,
yes.
of coaching him and guiding him through what the CDC would like to see and the council person would like to see?
Correct. Yeah. So my colleague, Ben Campbell, who's our Director of Economic Development, has been meeting with Mr. Zayed since before he purchased the property and, let him know before he purchased it that this zoning was not for gas and that, we were not sure that we would be able to provide support if he moved forward with a gas station. And that was before he'd actually purchased the property. So, my colleague Ben has also worked with Mr. Zayed because he has a second gas station in the neighborhood itself. So they were already familiar with each other and have been in communication over the last couple years.
And did you help him facilitate community meetings?
Correct. We set up the community meeting.
Okay.
And we have flyered the neighborhood 3 to 4 times, soliciting input from residents. We have not received any, while at the community meeting, I will say there was some balanced perspectives. Most of the folks speaking either lived outside of the neighborhood or further from the site. We did not receive any phone calls or feedback in writing from direct residents in support of the project. I mean, they may exist, but nobody, despite flyering 3 to 4 times, asked, and walking the neighborhood, when we solicited those, we did not receive, we just asked that if folks couldn't attend the community meeting, we would love to still hear from them. We encourage them to send, support or opposition to Board of Zoning Appeals. And we received only opposition.
Okay, thank you. Maurice, do we have Adam with us today, or are you speaking on behalf of city planning? So are you speaking on behalf of city planning?
First, Madam Chair, we do have Councilman Slay's hand up.
Yes, Councilman.
I'm in the car, so hopefully there's not too much background noise. But to your question, Madam Chair, about the planning for Rocky River Drive, I have had a number of conversations with NOACA about a TLCI or a TLCI-like plan tied specifically to it's a multi-city economic development group called the Aerozone. It's basically centered around the airport. And the idea is essentially that as far as West Park goes, in many ways, Rocky River Drive does feel like the expressway to the airport. So how can we sort of reimagine Rocky River Drive so it feels more like a gateway into a neighborhood rather than a gateway to the airport? The city is providing that group some economic development funding now, and my support of that funding was pretty clear that my expectations, in addition to broader economic development, do center around commercial corridors and support of the residential portions of the city that are by the airport, which this really being the prime example of that. So yeah, those conversations are ongoing and very important to me. The street has a D rating from NOACA, and it's State Route 237. So my position is to make sure we have this plan in place so that ODOT doesn't come in and just redo the street as is. We have the real opportunity to be a bit more prescriptive on what the corridor looks like.
And is this, just out of curiosity, is Rocky River Drive a state route or a county route? Do you know? State route.
In case he cut out, that was State Route 237, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks. All right.
Madam Chair, one more thing. I did not find that letter. If Ms. Moudry could tell me the name of the person that sent that,
Okay.
Perhaps that can help me find it.
Did you?
I did. I will see if I can search for it. I think they copied me on it, and I'll forward it if I can find the name and find the person.
Right, if you can do that, that'd be great. All right, Mr. Rulins, back to you.
Maurice Roland, City Planning. So, under previous administration and previous leadership, CDC, the City Planning Commission staff worked with those people and the councilman at the time to change the zoning on this section of Rocky River Drive to local retail to eliminate auto-centric type uses. So it was a deliberate attempt by the city to change the zoning here. We don't see that there is a hardship for this particular parcel. There is an existing business on the parcel. We would love to see the expansion of a larger retail space in this that they are proposing, but we do not support the addition of gas pumps in this area.
And the point of contention is really the gas pumps, correct?
Correct.
As it is with the council person. So,
May I ask when that zoning was changed to eliminate that?
I don't have the date off the top of my head, sorry.
I believe it was 2009, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else who wishes to make comment? And then I'll get back to you, Mr. Coyne. All right, hearing no other requests for comment.
Yes, if I could just state a couple of things. One, the community meeting that did take place was remote, but there were several positive comments made by residents of the ward. The comment I think that was referenced was unusual. A mayor of adjacent community, I think Wycliffe, testified about how well he runs his business, which I thought was interesting. It was kind of random. But the mayor testified about how well he runs his business. I thought that was significant. And I also been to enough community meetings to know when it's balanced. It was surprisingly balanced in terms of good questions from those for and against, but there were a lot of comments in favor of this. So I just wanted to make that for the record. It is a state route. First of all, about traffic, and this is, we could have all these aspirations about what Rocky River Drive is. It's a pretty busy thoroughfare. It's a significant boulevard that connects to the airport, whether we like it or not, from the west side of Cleveland, which is pretty densely populated, and Lakewood. That is a significant mode of transportation. It has been. That part of our city has also seen a significant amount of disinvestment. There are a lot of vacant retail spaces, and some of the convenience stores are struggling because, frankly, they're just standalones and they're not all that well run. The one gas station that was on Rocky River Drive also closed. So I think it's important to recognize that you don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And when you have someone who's willing to reinvest $2 million in this kind of a site, you can't simply look at it in a vacuum and say, well, we don't want cars there anymore. And the fact of the matter is, these types of uses are parasitic in nature from a traffic standpoint. They don't create traffic. The traffic's already there. So whether we like that or not, that is a fact. So we think that should be given consideration. I also find these environmental issues to be concerning when they're raised about this one in Parma. It's not his gas station. He doesn't own that. He's not been cited in those circumstances. In addition, this would all be under the newest technology available. It's regulated by the Department of Commerce and the Bureau of Underground Storage Tank Regulations concerning these pumps going in. So I think it's unfair to look at those issues, a 40-year-old gas station, which has older technology. This is not that case. And there was a gas station here for some 50 years. When it comes to the city's policy issues on it, I do think that's why there's an appropriate variance request here, because you want this to be a very successful business, and the inclusion of the EV charger seems to be okay, by the way, and the pumps just makes more sense to make sure we have a successful business investing in our city. I think that's critical. The third point that I always get concerned about, it's crime. I mean, really? Crime. First of all, his record on having any of those issues is unbelievable because of how he operates them, how the internal businesses are lit up. I think that's really important. He doesn't have those issues. He's not had those issues. But if we start to run from people investing in our city because of things like crime, I mean, that to me is really a bad policy to set forth. Now, and I don't know, Joe, if you want to mention, when you bought the property, I think this is important. Were there some risks about, yeah, you might need a variance for this kind of inclusion? Yeah, but it's not something you don't say, don't do it because we right now don't have it under the current code when you're making this kind of an investment in our city. So, John, if you want to address how you went to buy the property.
When I saw these properties, 7-Eleven had closed, Cone Zone had closed. I bought 7-Eleven first. I had no contact with Ben Campbell. I had no contact with anybody. I saw the building, it closed down because, yeah, they were a convenience store operating business, but there was limitations. That's why there was 2 businesses that closed down on that corner. I bought it under the assumption from the seller, because he showed me his plans, that he was gonna build a gas station there. The guy owned it for 35 years, and he owned it when there was a gas station there, and he started the plans with an engineering company. So anyways, this was in December of 2021. Yes, December 2021, I believe. Couple months later, maybe January or right around time, he puts me together with Ben. I know Ben, we worked together on another project in this ward but it's on a different area off the highway on Lakewood Heights Boulevard, the Speedy Gas on Lakewood Heights Boulevard that we did a conversion to. It was with Marty Keene, the old council. So I had a conversation with Ben. Ben did tell me at the time that the council, that they're not really too much in support of it, but let's have a meeting to sit down and see your plans. We had a meeting in May, I believe, of 2022. Me, Rosemary, Councilman Slife. At first, they were against it. Rosemary's like, why don't you do all EV, XYZ? Then I'm like, listen, I really want the gas station because of the convenience store. I mean, that's why it shut down. Convenience stores without the gas, they're not doing that great. You don't see many of them around the city. They're like, well, listen, submit your plans or get your plan together. Let's have a community meeting. A couple days later, my grandmother passed away. Her wish was to be buried by her father overseas, wherever it come from, Palestine. So we all went, like, took her overseas, and I brought my kids. I was there for 2 months, you know. So when I came back, we wanted to start the process. The store wasn't open. There was a liquor license here, and we didn't get the liquor license till October or November of this year. So we opened the store. The store is a store. It's not profitable for me. It's just open, you know. Like I told them, if I can't make this project happen, I'm gonna wind up Conesville. I'm not gonna do anything with Conesville. They shut down for a reason. There was no business there at the present way that it looks, and 7-Eleven shut down for a reason. So I'm either gonna sell it, divest, and let somebody else deal with it, because I want to build a project where I need to be profitable. I don't need to break in profit. I need to be in the green. I can't be in the red. So just some clarifications. And then that Parma gas station, that has nothing to do with me. That's not my station. Has nothing to do with me. Just kind of was like, what are they talking about, without doing research or asking, you know? But we don't have any of those issues. We haven't had any crime issues. I mean, once in a while, yes, police is called just to de-escalate a situation, but no crime. Our stations are lit. People feel safe to come in. All the gas stations on Rocky River Drive, I wouldn't let my wife stop there. I wouldn't let my wife or my kids stop in there. My station is going to be an inviting place. My store is going to be inviting, welcoming to everybody, and it's going to be a safe place to come, get your groceries, get your needs, get in, get out, and have a conversation, have a cup of coffee. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you for your comments. Board, any questions, comments?
I have one question.
Yes.
Why are we hearing this before the city planning commission has addressed?
So for city planning, we'll need to do a final site plan review and then a lot consolidation, because there are 2 separate parcels. It was decided to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals first, because when you get the variance, we want to spend more time on the final site plan review and do the lot consolidation if the business is not going to go ahead. Otherwise, he could sell the zone property off or what have you. And he did. The store is open. It has been significantly renovated. But again, his view of the entire investment is that this is one investment to make it successful. He thinks it's the important part of having 2 EV chargers and the gas pumps. And by the way, as Mr. Tachik stated earlier, he is laying out the pumps, and they're being designed, so those could be convertible to EV chargers, depending on what happens, probably in the next decade, you know, realistically. So those are things that I thought were pretty innovative. I do a lot of work in this space, and I haven't found a regional operator who's thinking this way. I can't think of a location in the city where you've actually had stations go in with EV chargers. I know some of the big dogs, as I call them, Speedway and Sheetz in particular, are looking to do that, but they have much, much larger sites that do that. This is just under an acre, so it's not a small site, but it's also not as big as some of the ones you can see on let's say, interchange location. But I think it's important that we keep in mind this particular boulevard does get a lot of traffic, and it will always get a lot of traffic, whether we like it or not. And we should try to be accommodating to pedestrian friendly businesses, but I think this also balances that. Otherwise, how are we gonna get this in our city if we don't take some of that into account? And I do think that given where he's at on this particular project, we thought it was totally reasonable to come in and request a variance for what he's doing, because this isn't, you know, I think the one prong about changing the neighborhood, for almost 5 decades, and 4 decades, there was a gas station there. So while this community was growing up, it was around some of these gas stations. And the ones that are closed were very poorly run. And he's right, some of the ones that are open are really not in great shape. So if you want to improve the neighborhood and you put in somebody that's gonna do it the right way, that's gonna incentivize the other folks either to up their game or close. And if that's the sense, I think that we should look at trying to support somebody that's doing it the right way. And like I said, I don't like when I hear about the perfect being the enemy of the good with where we are. And again, you could go down Rocky River Drive, there's the intersection of Purtis or Lorraine, you'll see a lot of vacancies. So I think it's important to get these investments, I really do.
Madam Chair, I have a couple questions.
I thought you might.
As I'm feverishly taking notes here. So Mr. Coyne, I'd like you to just respond to, I think it was Councilman Slife's statement that the appellant does not have an economic hardship because his business is currently operating. And then also speak to queuing. So on Rocky River Drive, the way that the plans are set up, if you're very busy and doing quite well, which I'm sure you hope to be, I can envision traffic being outside of the curb cut on Rocky River Drive. If you can speak to that and how you would remedy that, be interested in learning more.
Sure. First of all, the investment that he's making, he's contemplating the EV chargers and the gas pumps being there to help drive revenue. Without it, it's going to be difficult to keep going. Admittedly, he's taking a chance by doing what he's done, but that's really the reason. And if you look at Mr. Potacek's slide, you'll see some of the stores that are in the ward that are just convenience stores are really not doing very well. They're not well maintained. And I think that was a major factor for why he's trying to do it this way. So that's number one. The second one is the focus of the probably coffee and ice cream would be to have that one side a drive-through with a menu board going to it, so that we can accommodate about 6 cars. The other one is just an app pickup window, so that wouldn't be anything. There's no drive-through, there's no menu board. That's literally just to pick up something. And again, these are both concepts that when we go to planning, that may be something we'll have to, revisit, or if this board is concerned with it. There is an escape lane around the building, so it's not like if somebody's in line and it's taking too long, they're stuck, which is a problem with some businesses. He's got an escape lane all the way around the building. And Mr. Potacek's very familiar with that industry. So we think given the nature of it, that should not be a problem.
So just to the escape lane, I want to make sure I'm clear. Your testimony is that you will not cause a backlog on Rocky River Drive because cars that don't want to wait in line, or they can get around all the way around. And,
yes.
Okay.
And there are 4 parking spaces if somebody did want to park and then walk into the business.
Okay, thank you.
Those are good questions.
Yeah. It's functionally human nature is if his business is that successful, you're gonna make 2 choices. Either I'm going somewhere else, or if you are stuck and I'm just gonna walk in, then there are parking options for you to take advantage of that as well. So
Right.
the fact that the invitation is there's a pickup window to drive through, or you can walk up to a counter window. Great.
Right.
But that diversifies that flow of people as well.
Right,
So-
and the reason I asked this question is we do see that with gas stations and other places in Cleveland where there is a queuing issue, and that line ends up in the street backing up traffic. So, I would hate for that to be an issue here.
And another thing, being too busy is it's a problem, but it's kind of a good problem to have. Kind of like the Chick-fil-A's, they have somebody directing traffic. I mean, I don't see that, envision that here. I mean, hopefully, but when that time arises, yeah, we'll make sure, because you can't. Rocky River Drive is like a highway. I don't know how we're gonna make it pedestrian friendly, the street itself, and the gas station won't cause any traffic. It's my kid goes to school down the street from here. So on Rocky River Drive, it's a very busy street. I just want to add one more thing. I do a lot of projects in Northeast Ohio. This one I faced the most opposition from city leaders and development corporations. I've done them in City of Cleveland, always green light because they like the investment that we've done. Middleburg Heights, right now, we're doing a big investment. The mayor, everyone's on board and excited, welcoming, giving ideas to help out. City of Wickliffe was amazing. Elyria, and then what I take every time, I don't take successful businesses. I take closed down businesses. The Lakewood Heights that's in this ward was an eyesore, dead garages. We turned it around, and everyone told us when we did it, you guys are crazy. You're not going to be able to compete, or whatever. And now it's a landmark in the city of Cleveland off of 140th. So I'm not exactly sure why we're getting this opposition. I understand their vision for Rocky River Drive, but as it stands and has always stood, Rocky River Drive is a busy street. So again, we're not going to add more traffic to the street that there already is.
And then I have one follow-up question, Madam Chair, if I may. The number of pumps that you have you considered taking that number down to have less impact? It seems to be the main point of contention here with the residents at CDC and the council person is in regards to the pumps that you have. Could you make some of those, or have you considered making some of those EV charging stations rather than having as many gas pumps?
Well, our thing is this. How many EV charging stations are in that ward right now?
I'm not sure.
I know. This is the same conversation that I had at the CDC last year, probably on this date, May 2nd of last year. We had it with Rosemary and Slife. Rosemary proposed to me, why don't you make all of these EV charging stations? I said, hey, that's a great idea. In 10 years, that's what we're setting up for, because if I don't get this approval, no, I'm not gonna dig up outside a $400,000 dig up and then bring in new power units, because we're still in the dark about EV charging. I don't know if you guys know, EV charging at some places is costing just as much as a fill-up. And there's a lot that goes behind it in the production of lithium batteries.
Right.
This is still a very new thing. I mean, this could flip a different way. We're not sure. I know the current administration is pushing it, but we don't know. So what we're proposing is, because we're going to be digging to put the gas in, while we're digging, it's going to be nothing extra. It's going to be extra added cost, but we're going to run the conduits, electrical conduits to go underneath the pump. So in the future, let's just say 7 years from now, 2030, that's when everyone's at 2030, 2035, 70% of the cars on the street go electric. Well, what do? Instead of tearing down everything and rebuilding, take out the gas pump, get rid of it, and you put an electric charging station. You could do it for all four of them, and we'll still have the two there. And, and that way we'll have the capability to charge 10 cars at a time while they can come into our convenience store. And our focus is too, we don't have food in the store now. Our focus is to bring the food, the fresh food. Hopefully we go to Caitlin's Bakery and get the fresh bread. That's the things I like to do. I like to find local guys in the community and support them. And I would like that same support back because I'm local. I live here. He's talking about Speedway and Sheets. They're not local. They don't care. They don't care about the community. They don't care about the neighbors. I do. If there's an issue with the neighbor, so there's a couple issues that arose with this. We put lights up to prevent crime. A lot of people didn't like it. You guys didn't like it? They're off. They're gone. There was lights around the window. They don't like it? They're gone. Signage, they're gone. We kind of feel like this was a moving goalpost because every time we sat down with council or CDC, they were telling us different things to do. The patio outside, I think it's a good idea, but we went from 2 storefronts potentially collecting revenue now to 1 storefront. I don't mind. I think it's a good idea. It's a good place to sit, but the existing cone zone right now for me doesn't fit. It needs $200,000-$300,000 in work. I mean, it's a dump. It's a dump. And I took the chance on it thinking I'm going to demolish, not that I'm going to put $200,000-$300,000 into it to get it into a revivable business. Same thing with 7-Eleven. It was shut down. I opened it back up. I've been open for 5 or 6 months now, taking the chance, hoping we can get this. So that's all.
I have one last thing to say, and I'll stop monopolizing here.
No, it's
And this
okay.
is for Maurice.
Does that answer your question?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Very thoroughly, thank you. Just so I'm clear on the one variance that's left, it's just a use variance. We've met the landscaping and the,
So,
okay, got it, thank you.
So we're really looking at issue number 1 on the
Just- it's a
agenda.
portion of one.
Right.
So, and there's the fence is there? Okay.
Changing now, but would become a.
Become a solid wood
I
board.
just wanna go back to your question about the gas pumps. I'm sorry, I know we're taking, whoever's waiting for us to take forever. But, you know, I've invested 1.5 years into this plan. It's not from yesterday. I prefer to keep it this way with the 4 pumps, you know, because we're doing the investment. It's a minimal amount extra, and then when we flip EV, if that's something that can help this project move down to 3, I'm not opposed to it. You know,
To move to 3 EV,
pump, or no, 3 pumps.
3 pumps and how many EV charging stations?
You know,
Still 2.
Well, 2, or we can make one of the ones under the canopy on the EV charging station too. That's not, you know, I'm okay with that.
So that was going to be my question,
Sure.
because I think you're aware, given testimony from the councilman, from the CDC, from city planning, that you're not getting a lot of support for this from those folks so
Some,
far.
yes. Others, yes. but
Okay. And Mr. Coyne has testified that your community meeting was balanced,
Yeah. No.
But we don't have.
but we
We
don't,
don't have that testimony.
but we don't have that testimony. What we've heard are residents in opposition.
I thought they were supposed to present, that was supposed to get relayed back.
Yes, Rosemary.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so anyway, so the question here is, and I think what Ms. Roque is trying to get to is, can you find some sort of way the opposition is basically over the pumps. So is there some way for you to reimagine the pump issue so that you're not going to get voted down today?
To reimagine the pump.
Reduce the number of pumps, I guess.
Yeah, we could reduce the number of pumps to 3, to 3 gas pumps. And keep, if you want to keep a 4th EV charging station, we can, or we can just reduce the footprint of the canopy to 3. But economically, for me.
That's the question to you.
Economically, for me.
Yeah, that is the
this
question
would
to you.
not work as, without gas, this project is, in my eyes, it's dead for me. I'm moving, we're gonna.
So-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Your hardship is that you need a variance. You will have a hardship if you don't get the variance granted to you with gas.
Yes,
Okay.
because otherwise, Cone Zone, I'm not opening it up. I'm not gonna do it. And then the store, I mean, I don't know, it's okay, it's not producing any income. We spent a good amount of money inside of it. It's a really clean store. If you guys have time, check it out.
No,
And,
it's okay.
yeah, I mean, I look at different options. We're gonna see.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
Okay, I need you to state conclusively the minimum amount of gas pumps that you would be willing to have, and then what you would be willing to do to replace those, probably with EV. Because, yes,
Should we negotiate that?
no, I just want him to make a statement for us to be able to vote on.
That feels-
Yeah,
So you're asking me the minimum amount of gas pumps?
well, I mean, so to Ms. Brown's point, I'm not trying to negotiate with you, but I need you, because you were saying, oh, we could reduce it to 3, we could do this, we could do that.
But Madam
I need,
Chair,
yes,
we don't get input from others.
no.
So
All we need you to do is just clarify your testimony.
Yeah,
That's all.
just clarify.
I can, loud and clear, we will reduce it to 3 pumps if we have to, 3 gas pumps. And then the 2 EV chargers that are there, and an option for if you guys, the canopy needs to be smaller, we'll stick with 3 3 gas pumps. If the canopy stays the same size, that 4th pump will be EV as well.
Is that clear?
Clear to me.
Okay. All right. We just needed specific numbers.
I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Any other comment? No? Okay. Okay. I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, we've heard significant testimony from the appellant and the appellant's counsel as to the appellant's investment in the area or in the project, their proposed hardship and need for the variance, as well as the appellant's addressed the traffic concerns and spoken to testimony related to crime. We've heard from the councilman, the city, and also the CDC and residents on their opposition to the project based on crime, traffic, as well as their dislike or disapproval of the gas pumps. In rebuttal, the appellant has testified that he is willing to put into place 3 gas pumps, a potentially smaller canopy, and the possibility for a 4th pump to be modified to become an EV charger. You also have 2 EV charging stations on the property. Madam Chair, I move to approve the variance.
Okay, do I have a second? So that we can move to a vote, please?
Board Member Holzer, I second.
Thank you. Ms. Kukla, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Ms. Brown?
Yeah, well, we're at the point of voting, so.
Did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I feel like this is not ready for a vote. That's why I was asking about that back and forth. And that is my preference right now, to be able to continue in a positive direction without all possible. I'm having a hard time voting right now. So I'm sorry.
Ms. Holzer?
No.
Okay. All right. Are you in agreement with Ms. Brown? Okay. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Should we inquire about a tabling then, if you're not ready? Let me just say, I haven't talked to the client about it, but the canopy issue, even the traffic, that's gonna be addressed in city planning, so that's why I wasn't sure, there's flexibility on 3 gas pumps and then the EV charger, which can accommodate 2 vehicles. And the 4 space, that's gonna be an EV charger, you keep the canopy the same size, if it's just gonna be 3 pumps. And an EV charger would be reduced in size, but that zone would be by city planning, the design would be there. So.
Exactly. So, so you are in a situation where you're willing to negotiate something and maybe come back to us after you've worked with the councilman and the CDC and city planning?
I mean, what, can I speak?
Yeah.
I'd rather take the vote right now because, like I said, it's not really a negotiation. What I say, I'm a man of my word. If I say the 3, put that in as a restriction through planning. If it doesn't, if we don't do what we say, they'll deny it because we still got another step to go. But since we're all here, like I said, it's been a year and a half. I don't mean to rush anyone. But,
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I believe that the board members, though, they can still request a postponement.
Yes.
If they, you know, if
Right.
they want more information.
I do think, given some of the comments, that if you're uncomfortable with both, because we are making some changes, I appreciate this comments, I think a tabling would probably be appropriate.
So you're asking for a postponement?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's the way to go, Mr. Coyne.
Thank you.
So we will suspend the vote and move to a postponement at the request of the appellants. And do we have a date for them?
June 12th or June 26th. I think giving them up to June 12th, probably give them 30 days.
Is
If
that
that's
enough
what-
time for you, Mr. Coyne?
12, sure, yes.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, do you want to see the site plan in advance, or are we remembering it the week before? Or how
We'll
soon
need
would
new
you-
drawings.
Maybe as soon as possible.
Yes.
And things always work best when you have all parties involved in agreement. We talked this through a lot, but I think it was worthwhile.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
So it was not a cut and dry situation.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
all right. All right, do we have any other council people present?
Kelly?
All right, Councilman Kelly.
Yes. Is,
All right, thank you for your patience. Go ahead and read the case. Calendar number two.
We do have a.
As do I. Folks, we're just gonna take a brief break. Sorry.
Yeah.
You mute the microphone, every.
Yep. All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. We're going to resume. Councilman Kelly, are you still with us?
He is not. He had a family emergency, so I was going to speak on his behalf.
Okay.
Executive Assistant Dave Rogers.
Okay, we'll swear you in, Dave, as soon as we get to that point, okay? So, thanks. All right. Calendar number 23-029 is next, and Ms. Holster, you want to read the case?
No problem. Our next case is calendar number 23-029. This is at 11725 Lorraine Avenue. Yasin Corp. LLC owner proposes to change the use from store to assembly hall in a C1 local retail zoning district and a pedestrian retail overlay district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are two. This case was originally postponed from March 6th at the request of city planning to allow time for the pedestrian retail overlay district review. It was again postponed from April 17th at the request of city planning or of the City Planning Commission to allow for further review. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Brown for the oath.
Okay, I'm swearing in all who are present for this case. Should we have them come to the front? Is that, or are they?
Yes. Do we have the appellants here?
Who's here? Are they online? I see the the aide for the council.
Yeah.
But is the appellant with us? Can you tell?
Don't see her. Do not see anything.
Well, shall we continue with the agenda and see at the end if someone is?
We'll just see if Liz
Yes.
can.
Yeah, his name's not on this.
All right. Dave, there's no appellant present, so we're going to loop on to another case, and then if they show up, we'll come back to you. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, we'll go to the top of the agenda, calendar number 22-138. Ms. Holzer.
Our next case is calendar number 22-138. This is at 3820 West 33rd Street. Cheryl Manthe, owner, proposes to install approximately 120 linear feet, a 6-foot-high wooden fence in a C1 multifamily residential district. The owner appeals for relief from this strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are three. There are three. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Brown for the oath.
And I think our appellants are stepping forward right now.
Thank you. So I'm swearing you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony? I'm sorry. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand, state your name, and your address and say, I do.
I do. Cheryl Manthe, 3820 West 33rd Street, Cleveland.
I do. David Lane, 3820 Street.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else on the line?
Carl Brunges, 601 Lakeside.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you. 1 second. All right. Okay, could we have the history of the property, Secretary?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This property was originally zoned general retail in 1929, and then in 1981, it was changed to the current zoning. In our Records Administration Office, we found that in 1911, a permit was issued to reshingle the dwelling property. 1947, a permit was issued to convert to a 2-family. In 1965, a permit was issued to erect a chain link fence. And then, Madam Chair, there is a variance on file in calendar 84-116. It was in 1984. A variance was granted to erect an addition for an enclosed swimming pool and garage. And then in the more recent history, we see that in 2021, a permit was issued to install 150 linear feet of open ornamental fence per plan that was submitted. And then, Madam Chair, we do also see that there was a landmarks decision that was denied. And I believe Mr. Runges is here to speak to that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Could we have the legal standard, please?
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting area variances from the fencing requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, the appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship, particularly to property such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting of variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you. Are you going to be speaking for yourself, presenting your case? Yes. Okay, let us know what you would like to do.
Because I'm seeking a variance. There was a lot of confusion over the whole permit application process because of COVID. So there was a lot of online and miscommunication. So it's ultimately, we decided on the fence that we have because of several safety issues that have come up. I own the house. I bought the house in 2005. And there's been increased criminal activity in the area. So we're just trying to do things to keep the area safe, to protect our perimeter. We've had everything from drug paraphernalia in the front yard to police activity in the yard. We just recently had damage on a backyard fence because of them climbing over another fence. So there's a lot of need for just more secure a perimeter on the fence. So we want to be able to improve the property, get siding, and have the place look nice and keep some safety for ourselves, as criminal activity unfortunately has kind of risen, and we're trying to combat that just by maintaining a safe perimeter.
Well, what about the name?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
They're our neighbors.
Well, you can see
I don't know where they're from.
You can actually see where
They like taking over our yard when we're not home. That was before. They park in our driveway. We've come home, there's tables and chairs in our driveway and they're having a party. And the kids are running around the yard, doing all kinds of things. It's like,
the driveway used to be shared, so there's like a double apron, and folks would drive up my driveway to go in like parallel park. Like if on the neighbor's side, someone was close to the sidewalk, they would drive up my driveway.
Drive around and drive.
And using my front yard because there was no way of protecting my front yard from the neighbors using it. And now, unfortunately, there's a lot of activity on the street. And on any given day, if I just want to sit on my front porch, I'm looking at, we had one guy actually unload his car onto the tree lawn, reorganizing it for his continued stay in the car, I suppose. But for me to sit on my front porch and be really close to what, this activity that just makes me uncomfortable is making me I didn't for the longest time want to be in my front yard and on my front porch. If this is city property, they can be on the street, and I can't change that, but can I have a perimeter so that when they're out there, they're always out there. There's 2 houses down, there's a very active house. People come and go, and they park in front of my house to keep them parking in front of the house that are involved in the activity, because if they park in front of that house, then it draws attention to that house.
And almost nightly, there's
a lot of
ambulance go down the road to revive somebody, take them to the hospital. All kinds of crazy stuff is going on. She likes to garden.
Probably the scariest
thing. There's been times she's been in the front yard and large teenagers intimidated her. And she runs in the house, don't want to be out in her own yard. We find needles in the yard. There's been wrestling matches between cops and people running from the cops in our yard. There's a bullet hole in the house. I mean, just need to calm it down.
What's your closest?
Been up. We haven't had all this crazy activity in the yard.
What's your closest?
It's easier to run around.
Yeah. What's your closest cross street? What do you?
It's Dennison.
Dennison? By Dennison.
I'm not the corner house, but the corner house is the corner of Dennison.
Okay. And Ms. Kukla has circulated a copy of your plan, a hard copy of your plan for us to review. So we've seen this besides it being up on screen. So, okay, I think we understand your situation. Mr. Brunges, did you have comment to make, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do. Maurice, could you put this to my slides, please? I will note that a complaint was filed on January 14th, 2021. That work was being completed without a permit with the fence being installed. An inspector went out to the property the next day, found that to be a valid complaint, and a violation notice was issued on January 21st. The building permit, you can go next, Maurice, to where the building permit was.
Yeah, you know what, I can't find it at the moment, I'm looking for it right now.
Hire a builder. We agree that the.
Like I said, it was highly
secondary-
irregular.
We hired a builder.
Excuse me, could you please wait till the chair recognizes you? Thank you.
There we go, that's good. The building permit was applied for on April 22nd, 2021, and the permit was issued on May 12th, 2021 to install the 150 linear feet of 4-foot, 50% open fence, which there's a copy of the permit, and then next to it is the site plan that was with it. When
So
it was found out that a 6-foot fence had been installed instead, and there was follow-up with Board of Building Standards, I believe, and I believe it has this gone into court, but a second building permit was applied for, shown here on July 14th, 2022, and after some delays with getting this through our system, you can see that it was amended to show the 6-foot fence in the front. Denial was recommended by the Near West Design Review Committee on January 25th, 23, and case 23-014 was denied by the Landmarks Commission on March 9th, 2023. It is, does not meet Secretary of Interior standards, nor is it appropriate for the historic district. Thank you.
So the fence has been constructed prior to permit, and it remains after the second permit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. City planning?
Well, Madam Chair, Regional City Planning, of course, we support the action of the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. They basically created what I would call a compound here on this site. I mean, it's a historic, there's a lot of great buildings here in this neighborhood. You can barely see the house. I just couldn't imagine what would happen if you decided to grant variances for 6-foot tall fences right at the sidewalk line. It's not walkable. It doesn't create a walkable environment. Doesn't create a pedestrian friendly environment. I have I have a letter here from one of the residents who also states that the fence causes many dangers. Several times kids running were almost hit as I cannot see backing out of my driveway. As you know, we don't allow fences in the front yard adjacent to driveways at 6 foot. We don't even allow them at 4 foot. They need to be 2.5 feet next to the driveway. For just that reason, somebody backing out would not be able to see a pedestrian, child, adult, whatever, walking down the street, and you could potentially, hit a pedestrian. And then she also goes on to say there was also a time when police were looking for someone with a gun who could not see over the fence. If Mrs. Manthe would have applied for the permit, she would have found she could not put this fence up. So we are totally in support of the Landmarks Commission. We do not feel that a 6-foot high board on board, 100% opaque fence at the sidewalk line is appropriate in any residential district in the city of Cleveland.
Okay, board, comments, questions?
Madam Chair, I just have a question about, is the fence that 6 foot all the way around? That's what they erected? 6 foot solid all the way around?
The 6 foot wooden part is in the front.
What's in the back, or the
That's the side. Slab.
So chain link with the plastic and,
Oh, okay. So the 6 foot boarded fence that we're seeing right now, that's just the front of your house and the two
Down the
sides?
sides.
And how tall is the chain link?
6 foot.
It's 6 foot, it's just a different material.
And it seemed like you wanted to provide some testimony before the city spoke about the permitting maybe?
My understanding is the landmark or whoever was going to work with us to make modifications.
Unless
We
what we
hadn't gotten a discussion with them about what modifications would be acceptable.
They said they'd be willing to work with us, accept modifications in order to let us keep it.
right.
Just don't wanna build, if it's 4 feet, people just jump over it.
Find something that
And,
is acceptably safe and all.
It's 4 feet. We don't feel safe in the house. But as you just said, if the neighbor said the police were chasing somebody in the neighborhood, there you go, there.
Well, that was about visibility. Did you have a lower fence at one point and determine that it did not provide you a sense of
It's a lower
security?
chain link fence.
No, the front yard didn't used to be contained, so it became unsafe, but you see that black fence in the lower left picture, there's a
Yes,
a fence that height going out about midway along the house, going from the house to the edge.
in the front?
Yeah, about midway, about halfway down the house, comes out sideways,
Is what you have, and people jump that?
jump right over.
Plus they were the kids and they
Yeah,
were
I'm
poking
not,
sticks
yeah,
at the
that's a whole
dogs.
other issue, poking at the dog, but.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes,
I agree, you can't have a 6 foot board on board, no visibility in the front. But as Ms. Manthey just said, she thought somebody would work with her on a design, and I would ask that we have staff do that. I don't know what the solution is, because you just told us you had a chain link fence, but maybe there's some kind of design that has scallops or something that, I have no
Or at the
idea.
post, we can put up mirrors to kind of back mirrors.
so here's the situation, as it exists now, it cannot remain. For a number of reasons. It's completely opaque, it's on the sidewalk line, it is 6 feet high, so, we can't, it has to be modified. And so it is unfortunate that in some cases, we call this, seeking forgiveness instead of permission. But as it exists right now, we can't approve it. So it will have to be modified. So,
Can I say one more thing real quick?
mhm.
I, just so you know, I didn't just decide to make this fence and it's the only one in the area like that. I walk, driving around, there's fences that high up to the sidewalk in my neighborhood. I wasn't trying to just be the bad girl. I saw fences, okay,
There are others.
that looked like one that would work. So
Yeah.
There's a precedent, so I wasn't just
There's at
trying to
least
go
5
off on a
other
limb.
off the same.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is that they're not before us today, so,
I'm just saying, I didn't want
Right.
to just say I'm doing this there.
so,
Madam Chair,
yes.
if I may, so this board could, consider allowing the height, and they could perhaps, not allow for the solid. So there is some wiggle room if you guys want to request it to go, be set off 4 feet from the sidewalk, you can do that as well. And then they would still have to go back to landmarks.
Right.
So if, I think that landmarks is wanting to know if this board would grant the height as well as the solidness of the fence. I guess perhaps the location as well. But it's my understanding that they would be willing to review the design if you guys, when you guys rule on whether or not you would allow the height and the opacity.
City planning, Mr. Rulins?
Just pointing out that Carl Brunges from Landmarks Commissioners raises his hand.
Okay. Mr. Brunches?
Thank you. I believe we would like this to be upheld as a denial, and we will work with the applicants to come up with a different solution that could meet code and or safety for everybody.
Great. Great.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I agree, great, but I would like to allow the fence to remain until they come up with a solution and then replace it.
Mr. Brunches, are you in agreement with that at the request of Ms. Brown?
I believe so for now. Yeah, but we're gonna have to come up with a solution. Also, I should note to the applicants that I should ask, did they have a written agreement with the contractor who installed this fence?
We had a contract, said that he would take care of everything.
Okay. Sounds like,
Okay.
did you hear that?
So, because the code says that if they have a written agreement that makes the contractor responsible for pulling the permits, that the contractor would be responsible for fixing this. But if the contract specifically says that the homeowner is responsible for pulling the permits, then it's back on them.
You'll have to.
Okay.
Already.
You'll need a,
Read your contract.
yeah, you'll need a copy of the contract.
We have a contract.
Okay, we'll need,
We figured we decided to do it,
yeah, didn't happen.
like cited.
Okay. So, who would ever like to make the motion? I think we're gonna go with Maurice?
Madam Chair, just one other thing, could you put some dates on this?
Correct,
Just-
yes.
That's why I'm asking.
Right, right.
Well, Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. If you're going to deny it, then we wouldn't need to do that. But if you want to postpone it, then that would be the way we do the dates. As far as allowing it until the permit is issued, I don't believe that that they would be cited immediately or in the near future if it's pending still with landmarks. So I think they have a little bit of time.
30 days, 60 days?
I'm not sure when the inspector.
I'm inclined to 60 days.
So we would not, so we're denying it today. I'm not sure if we would have any ability to put any conditions on that.
But if we postpone,
If it's postponed, then it'll be pending, and then they would not, it's my understanding that they would not have to be concerned about an inspector coming out and inciting them again, because I think that's the worst case.
Can Carl speak to that maybe?
yes. Mr. Brunches, Ms. Roca requests that if you listen to what Ms. Kukla just said with regard to postponing as opposed to denial and being able to put a time limit on it.
I think that would be fine.
Okay, and is 30 days enough or do you need 60?
I think, why don't we give them the 60? And then
Okay.
that way they have a little bit more time to get their contract together. It's already there. And we're gonna have to figure out what their recourse is.
Okay,
And the new design.
and the new design.
Correct. Yes.
So, so we're gonna postpone your case. We're gonna give you 60 days. You'll need to come up with your contract and work with the landmarks and city planning on a new design, and you'll need to submit a new design plan. Is that clear? Okay.
Yeah, we thought they were gonna give us a recommendation, what kind of design.
Yeah, I guess we just.
Well, they'll work with you on that because you can't have 100% no opacity at 6 foot on the sidewalk line. So there are some options and they'll work with you on that. Okay? Are we, do we have a date for them, Liz?
So the first week in July would be the 3rd, so I think you should do the 10th.
Yes, great. Okay. Okay, Mr. Brunches, the postponed date is July 10th, so if you can make sure you make connections with the appellants.
A staff member will be in contact as soon as
Awesome.
possible.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you. Okay.
We're going back to this one, are we going?
All right, do we have,
117.
yeah. Thank you. Do we have an appellant yet for that case?
I haven't seen anybody arrive.
No?
Since we last announced it.
Okay. Okay, Dave, for Councilman Kelly, we have no appellant present at this point. So we're moving on.
Oh.
All right, next case.
We would take them if they come in.
Yes, we'll take them if they come in, so we're just gonna move forward.
We're just gonna
Myself from this one.
give them all
Okay.
day, or,
We give them to the end of the session.
okay.
Okay, Ms. Holzer is recusing herself from the next case, which is calendar number 23-066. So, Ms. Rokic, would you read the case, please?
Sure. Hopefully I do this correctly.
You'll do it fine.
We are hearing calendar number 23-066. Maria Nose, owner, proposes to create a one-split paver parking space to existing single-family residents in a B1 two-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the following sections of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances. Section 33723A, which states that all parking spaces shall be located on rear half of lot. Section 394.04, which states that one parking space is required for each dwelling and no parking is provided. Section 349.05A, which states no parking space shall be located within 10 feet of any wall of a residential building that contains ground floors, windows, and all parking spaces shall be located behind the setback line. And section 349.07, which states all parking surfaces and maneuvering areas be graded with asphaltic or concrete surface and properly drained. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Brown for the oath.
Swearing in all who are present for this case, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand, say I do, state your name and your address, please.
I do, Jeff Fleming, 1862 West 44, that's right.
I do, Maria Knows, 1862 West 44th Street. I do, Addie McConaughey, I'm with Aristotle Design Group, 10560 Kingston Road in the area of Ohio.
Thank you. Is there anyone else perhaps online for this case? Madam Chair.
All right. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. In our Records Administration Office, we found that in 1931, there were alterations to a building on the site. It was identified as a two-story building. And then we also see that in before that, but in 1928, there was a dwelling addition on the property. 1963, a permit was issued to erect a fence. And then earlier in this year, a permit was issued. Sorry, it actually says issuance pending to erect a wooden deck with a jacuzzi spa. And that is all that I have. That's all.
Great, thank you. Legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Appellant is requesting area variances from parking requirements in zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship, particularly to property such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without variance. Will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning.
Thank you. So who's going to be the spokesperson?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us what you'd like to do.
Go back one more slide. Thank you. So we are a landscape architecture firm here in Cleveland. So what we have been doing is doing a landscape improvement site plan for Maria and Justin. There is an existing garage in the backyard that they have never been able to use and is falling down dangerous. We've already had a demo permit approved for that. And then what we're going to do is remove a section of the driveway to where the new cobble and brick is shown on the site plan. So our entire landscape improvement plan has been approved. It's just pending on this new driveway design in the front yard. So right now they cannot get their car between the house and the fence road property line. So we decided we were going to do a shade garden and still do pedestrian access with gates and replace the garage area in the back with green space landscape and then new perimeter fencing. So code says concrete or asphalt, but we have designed a brick driveway. So we're here for that as well. So it would be a brick pavement rather than asphalt or concrete. Just looks a little bit nicer. And it's more.
And what's the substrate under the brick?
So we'll have a crushed limestone and then gravel base drainage. So it'll be all new. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say that you can't get a vehicle between the drive and or the house and the fence, is it?
It's about 7 feet.
Okay, so.
We just recently took down the fence that was on the neighbor to the north's property.
The tree took it down.
The tree, yeah, a mulberry tree took down, there was a fence there along that, like, where that grass strip is right now, that wouldn't allow a car without, I think the only car we ever got back there was our neighbor's Mercedes that then got totaled because when it was on the street. But, so since you've had the house, you've never been able to use the driveway to get to the back? Correct. That's, the car in the front is my car and I've never gone past where it is, past the porch. Like as soon as the house comes in, the property line is very.
So there is a garage back there.
Oh yeah, there is, but it's, we have a demo permit approved. We're just waiting for this process to kind of go through before we start.
So was a vehicle ever garaged in the garage?
It's just storage.
Yeah, Noelle Celeste owned the house before me. I bought from her in 2009 and she never had a car back there and I never.
What year was the house built?
70 something. It's old. The garage is probably not that old. But yeah, it's a mystery to us too, because especially if you figure, say 50, 60 years old, cars were bigger back then. I don't know how they would have gotten it back there, but for not being a fence and trespassing on the other.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say maybe before that sidewalk was there on the neighbors, they just used that whole width.
Yep.
Yes, you can drive a car if you're in the grass. You can, if you're on the neighbor's property line, you can get a vehicle back there.
But our plan is to
Like the
put a
tree
new
removal.
fence on the property line, so they're gonna be double gates from the porch to the property line, so we will not be able to get a car back in that space. So we thought best thing to do would do dry laid sandstone, kind of paver walkway through a shade garden to the back, and then the new decking landscaping.
And what's the distance to the sidewalk?
To the, from where? Sorry.
From what you're proposing, like your parking drive pad?
It's about 40
This
feet.
area here.
It's weird. My house is really set back far. It's.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I noticed that.
It's unusual.
So
Yeah.
she's actually pretty much a whole 20 feet further back than the other houses. And we are staying within the same footprint of the driveway. We're just going to take out the asphalt that's falling apart and putting in.
Right. No, I just wondered what the distance
It's
was,
about
what the
40
length.
feet.
How
A little
much?
bit more than 40 feet.
40 feet,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
So
So more than
cars,
two
the
car
last car doesn't
Right, they can
go
be-
over the sidewalk.
No.
Yes, and if you look at the picture, you can see there's 2 cars parked in there and plenty of space for the
And a
sidewalk.
mini,
And a minivan,
my brother's
yeah.
minivan.
So, and yeah, bottom right picture, you can see the sidewalk is open.
I actually, in Abby's original design, there wasn't as much driveway and we actually asked her to move it closer to the porch to guarantee that no matter what, two cars ever are owned in that residence, that you would never cross
Be on
the
the sidewalk.
sidewalk.
And then we have some precedent images too of other neighbors that have kind of done similar things, so it's very common in this neighborhood. You mind clicking through photos?
Madam Chair, while they're doing that, did the appellant state that the house was erected in 19?
Oh, no, 1870.
Oh.
1870.
If I said 1990.
Yeah.
It's just some old.
Right. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
I knew what you meant.
So these are just some neighboring properties that Victoria took pictures of along her dog. So people are frequently parking in front of the homes. This is just a rendering showing the brick paving, and then we're gonna have a little bit of green space in between the tire treads as well.
The other thing we'll be doing while we're digging it up is currently the car that's closest to the house is where our solar inverter is. It's an electric car that charges there. Where in the future, I probably will buy another gas powered car. So we're gonna bury conduit so we can have another charging space for a car in the future as well.
Okay. Okay. Any
Are
other?
you gonna fix the apron as well? Or are you leaving it?
I saw that picture, it looks,
I know,
it looks worse than it feels. One thing I love about my apron, as a cyclist, is that when the street was repaved, like for when the marathon came down 44th, it is like sort of below the street level, so like I don't have that bump on my bicycle. But yeah, it does look particularly bad there, and I just was, yeah.
That's not before us, I just
Yes,
asked.
Justin?
Yeah, no, we're on it.
So the street is higher than your apron sits?
It's like perfectly even.
Okay.
Like as opposed to most new aprons that have the bump
Yeah,
that-
yeah. So it's ADA.
It is 88. Yeah, my house is
Okay.
lower than a lot of houses. Special.
Okay, anything else?
We're just waiting for this approval before we can get the final permit to start the work back.
Okay, city planning, Maurice?
We're still on city planning. Yeah, we just cannot recommend approval on this. I guarantee you that these images that they are showing us, we never approved any of these parking spaces in the front like this one. These are just things that people are doing. As you know, as long as I've been here, we've never approved a parking space in the front yard setback within 10 feet of the windows of another adjacent house as well as their own house. Parking is supposed to be in the rear half of the lot. There's 3 variances just to get one car, parking space in the front. While I do agree they're doing it, with the rendering is very nice. I can't really comment on the pavers. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know if that's gonna drain properly. That would be more along the lines of what their housing would comment on. But we cannot approve parking in the driveway in the front of the house. It would just set a very bad precedent citywide, people wanting to get parking on the driveway. The driveway is not parking, it's to access parking spot in the back of the house. If you don't have that, then I guess you have to use off-street parking. But we have denied these at places like Tremont where parking is even tougher and where they don't even have a garage in the back. This is something that we've never, as long as I've been doing this.
Which is true.
And here, Madam Chair, I just have more of a comment. The challenge with the site is that the garage is, well, it's being demoed, it's unusable, and they can't get to the rear half of the lot. There's no, you're landlocked on the backside.
Correct, there's no alley.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if we were to deny your variance today, your only remedy would be street parking.
And, I don't like setting precedent for this. I know I don't, parking cars in front of houses is strange. We have this strange property that our house has room for 2 cars.
in front of it also. Justin parks almost exclusively on the street already. I have no problem with street parking, except that my house is so far away from the street that I can't charge my electric vehicle from the street. You know, that's the only thing I would say about it. You know,
Excuse me, the slides, I can see where her driveway is to the next house.
So to the property line, it's about 7 feet, and then there's a couple feet of turf, and then the neighbor's concrete walkway. So that edge of asphalt is the property line.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to figure out
how close I am. to
their
Leslie.
door. Are there, he was talking about windows and what's on their house that's
So,
next to your driveway?
In the bottom right, you see Leslie's porch so her front door is well in front of ours.
Yeah, but it's set
And
back.
then hers is also set back, yeah, and she has a new porch. And then she has probably 2 living room windows, no kitchen window facing that, and then there's a little addition that has laundry room.
So
One
I
story in
think
the back.
you're looking here, right?
Mhm.
And there's
The
a
tree
bay
is right
window,
in-
yeah, there's a bay window right there, and then is there anything on her house behind the tree?
There's 2 window in the top right, you can see the window cutout sort of like the red trim.
Okay.
So she has 2 windows facing,
But that's beyond where your car is, right?
that's true. Yeah.
That's my question.
Oh, yeah, there's no windows.
Those windows in there are these windows here, right?
Yeah, it looks right.
It looks right.
Yes, they're all the way back.
So there are no windows that are
Where the
being
property
obscured by
is.
this tree?
Correct, because she has like an entrance way.
Yep.
Okay, does that
Um,
answer your question?
There is a
Yeah.
window in the
Okay.
front door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Yes. Okay.
right.
Does your neighbor object to this?
No. She's I've had she's a tenant. It's Cleveland Bricks house. They only removed the mulberry tree that had destroyed my garage after it fell down, which started this whole thing of allowing us to get the fence down and going, but she's been there 10 years and she does not. I could bring her here if we need to.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
could ask a question. Has the deck that is shown on the other side of the house been erected already?
Oh, no,
They
nothing
haven't
is,
done anything yet.
no, so we were waiting, the building department, pretty much approved everything for the site, but this variance was kind of tied to that permit, so, the driveway needs to get approved, or the variance approved prior to them giving us the landscape improvement. Building department, that would be easier to just keep as a permit number during this process.
So Madam Chair, there seems to be room on the other side if you want to ask the appellant to speak to that. Adam, if they don't put up that deck, they would have room.
To add a curb
They
cut,
don't have a curb cut.
I mean, there's a beautiful maple tree right there that would, yeah.
Oh, usually on this side.
Right.
So the property, so there's the property in the middle, also starting this entire process, is that there's a lot between us, there's a whole lot between my house and Dagmar Celeste's house to the south, and we each got half of it, and my new neighbors put up a privacy fence right along that property line. So like, I was fine just leaving the garage, leaving everything as is until like I lost half of this shared middle yard to the south of me.
So what is this dimension here?
I know I have 45 feet total.
Yeah, oh, you're saying from the edge of the porch to the.
I could put a driveway, yeah, I could put a driveway there. I would ask for a variance to have no parking
Yeah, we
before
would
that.
never wanna, like,
I would never do that.
Okay.
So, You can-
So-
There's plenty of room, yes, to put a driveway to the south, and I would never.
Take out the trees.
Yeah, there's
but-
nice
Right.
existing trees.
Can we see the
Right.
front of the?
There's this is the nicest blue spruce in the near west side in the front, which is in the top left.
The actual, oh, there you go.
And a beautiful maple tree that has not yet even been hacked at all by the power companies. But I know, look in the bottom right, you can see it's not a Y shape yet, so. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I also
Comments?
know if we did need
Oh,
more,
so
if we did need more support from adjacent neighbors, across the street is another architect firm. Next to him is Greg Peckham could come and provide support. He offered that this weekend. If we need to postpone it.
Are you asking
If that
to
would help.
postpone it, or are you asking
No.
us to take a vote?
No,
Well, we are at 3 members.
There are 3 members, so you would need
You'd need a unanimous
a
decision.
unanimous decision. We are missing, with the recusal, and we're missing.
Right, and we're missing Miss Britt.
if we left a section like from the edge of drive back, like a gravel material, so technically it would be.
The issue is the parking in the front of the house within 10 feet of another structure. And that really goes to fire issues. Should one structure catch on fire, then the cars are there, putting them at risk, or vice versa. Should one of the vehicles malfunction, then the other structures are at risk. So therein lies the issue. It's not so much the aesthetics of it, though drainage is part of it, but that's really where we're at. And so understanding the issue of losing the 2 trees to put in the drive on the opposite side of the house, that's why we're asking to give you another option. So we are at 3 members with Ms. Holster recusing, Ms. Britt being absent, so you'd need a unanimous decision. City planning is not in support of this. So there's your situation.
I do believe Landmark signed off on it as well, the building, if that helps.
It doesn't really.
Wasn't sure. They have, well.
Yeah.
Are we, I guess, like the brick and cobble, that's, original Cleveland roads, it's, what has been used, is that
Right.
still?
That doesn't really help either.
Oh, I know, I'm just asking for future.
Yeah.
If we have to come back again, is that something like it has to be concrete?
No, that's a design matter.
Yeah, that's a design.
Although that variance is before us.
I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
variances, so we're
Yeah.
not sure which, yeah.
So would you like to come back when we have a full board? Do you want to consider your other option? Or would you like us to move to a vote?
Yeah, so if it just, question of order, Madam Chair. If it's denied, is it possible to cure with the new design in the future? Or does that mean the issue is settled, I guess?
It's settled.
Then we should postpone because it feels like it's a no comment. And I know that so I want to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, we would.
The mulberry tree opened a can of worms. So,
Privacy fence.
yeah, so. Would you like to postpone then?
Yeah, I think we need to postpone.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Date for them, Liz?
It's been a long time with us.
June 5th or June 12th. June 12th is better for us because we've already done the June.
All right, I think let's give you to June 12th, all right? Gives you a little time to work on things. And maybe work with city planning or whoever you think might be beneficial to your case.
So Madam Chair, we are asking them to consider the other side of the house and to bring any extra
No,
information.
you don't even have to ask
Yeah,
us on
we
the
would-
other side, that's just.
Okay, so, what we,
Yeah.
I think we find it, if it comes down, that that's the only option, then we would remove ourselves.
Okay.
Compliment.
Right. Because we're going to always have one recusal on this.
Yes.
So let's wait till we have everybody else back. I mean, you know,
That's their option when we're down to three.
Yeah.
So we have to have a reason, right?
right.
that's just one.
Okay, that's it for today then, folks. We'll see you in June.
Thank you.
All right. Miss, you want to call Miss Holter back in?
There she is. She must be watching.
Got a question. Someone there?
Yes.
What about 11725 Lorraine? I mean, he didn't
Any
show
word
up.
yet?
What's the,
The hearing's not over yet. We're gonna give them until the end. Just in case they're running late or something, we have to give them till the end of the hearing. Now, we have
I
one
thought
more.
I just said was an adjournment.
No, we didn't use that word.
No.
I just saw
Oh,
the slide.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
We have another case.
We have one more case.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes the slides get scrolled through as we're moving from one
All
case
right.
to another.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
You can jump in around.
So did I, Maurice.
Gotta be agile.
This gentleman didn't forget.
They're still awake and they're patient. All right. The dubious distinction of being the last case for today, calendar number 23-068. Ms. Holzer?
Our next case is calendar number 23-068. This is at 2560 West Third Street. Baltimore and Ohio RR and Air Products propose to construct a temporary parking lot for construction crews on a parcel of land located in a general industry zoning district. The appellant seeks relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are two. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Brown for the oath.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm swearing you in for this case. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand if I state your name and your address.
I do. Mark Strickland, 1940 Air Products Boulevard, West Coastville, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, sir.
I do. Michael Molchan, Makovich and Boosty Architects, 111 Front Street, Korea.
Thank you, sir. Anyone on the line for this case? Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kukla, could we have the history of the property?
Sure, Madam Chair, thank you. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. We found very little on this address. We found that in 1936, a permit was issued to erect an office, a one-story office. 1937, a permit was issued to install gas tanks. 1980, a permit was issued to to demolish the office and commercial building on site. And then in the more recent history, we have no records of note. Thank you.
All right. Legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting a use variance and an area variance from drainage requirements of zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without variance. The private appellant of substantial property rights, and the granted variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. Obtaining the area variance, the appellant must prove that denying the request will create practical difficulty not genuinely shared by the remaining buildings in the same district. The private appellant of substantial property rights, and the granted the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning.
Thank you very much. All right. Which of you gentlemen are going to be doing your presentation?
I'll speak for what we're doing. This is part of a much larger project. It's a capital investment that we're doing on 2820 Quigley. And that building permit has been approved originally since the switch to SWPPPs were submitted as one. We only applied for one building permit. Then we found out that it had to be split. We had a second building permit for the parking area. But I think Air Products, we've been there probably since the 60s. We built 3 ASUs, air separation units, and they supplied oxygen, nitrogen to the mill. In the 1980s, we replaced those 3 with 3 new plants. Now those plants are over 40 years old, and 2 of them need to be removed. 1 of them will be refurbished, but it can only be refurbished when the new plant is built. We need this area parking facility for laydown for some of the major equipment coming in, because it'll be staged there for a month or 2 until it's taken over to the new site. Since it's an existing facility, it's a very, very tight site. So we need to have this for equipment storage, but also, as you see, we'll have parking spaces, and that'll hold the craftsmen that'll be working on our site. The peak at any one time, we expect to be around 120 people. Although overall, we would expect there to be maybe 300 to 400 craftsmen from the beginning of site prep, piling, civil, mechanical, electrical.
From start to stop.
Yeah, start to stop, but the peak would only be about 120 people. With this new plant that we're putting in, and while we need a parking facility, we would suspect that this would sustain Cleveland Cliffs for another 15 years, and would also add 20 permanent positions to their products facility.
Can you give me some idea of the equipment that you're going to be staging in the area?
It'll be essentially distillation columns. It'll be in a cold box, and like I said, they'll be there for probably a month or 2. And large vessels. There'll be no oil containing, so there'll be no hazard from.
No hazardous weights
Yes,
that might potentially spill.
Exactly. What we have to do, our manufacturing facility is in China for our cold boxes. It's proprietary technology. We're actually going to bring them into Port of Cleveland, come down to Cuyahoga, and then roll off the barges over at the, I think, Independence Excavating owns area along Cuyahoga there at Bend, the turnaround. We're going to bring the barges in, and we'll use SPMTs, essentially. SPMT, it's a bunch of axles put together. There'll be 2 of them to carry the 217-foot cold box that will sit here.
So you'll offload from the freighter at the Cleveland Cliffs site.
We'll offload the freighter at the port on the barges.
To the Cleveland Cliffs, or
the Independence
Independent.
Excavating, which is adjacent to Cleveland Cliffs.
Yeah.
We'll roll the equipment. It'll sit here for a couple months as we're preparing the other site. Once the concrete's in place, we'll take each piece of equipment, erect them, and then we'll be able to start mechanical and electrical contracts to complete the installation of the air separation.
And the hours that you're going to have parking in use?
The hours that we would have parking is most likely it'll be in that 7 to 6 or 7 type of time frame.
7 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
Yes. And again, we work.
7 days?
It may turn into 7 days to try and maintain our schedule, but typically we'll be working a 5-day schedule.
Okay.
Saturday would be the main.
We need your worst possible scenario.
Worst possible scenario is there could be some 7-day activities. Wouldn't expect that to be prevalent.
Okay. All right.
Most of the time, we would expect a 5-day calendar. Like I said, Saturday is the makeup day for rain.
And what's your substrate and your aggregate that you're going to be using?
That is in the stormwater pollution prevention plan. Part of it. It's on the sheet that.
It's a stone gravel.
It's a stone gravel.
And this WPPP has been approved by the city, Northeast Region, and Cuyahoga Conservation District.
Yeah, it's right here, 9-inch gravel. aggregate base 304.
Oh,
and,
thanks.
Reinforcing mesh and compact subgrade.
Okay. I'm sorry, what was the name, the number of the aggregate again?
Number 9.
Number 9.
Base 304. I'm sorry, 9 inches aggregate base 304. So 304 stone.
Okay.
Part of the provisions of the SWPPP was that we would restore it to grassed area after we're done.
Okay, regular turf.
Yeah.
Right, regular grass, okay.
We'll use some of the topsoil that we're taking off, respread that, reseed it, and get the grass.
So that's gonna be held on site, piled somewhere?
Yes.
Okay. And contained within some sort of barrier or just mounted?
Yes, that's all part of the provisions of the storm pollution prevention bill.
Okay, all right. Anything else you want to add that I haven't asked you? Okay. City planning?
Municipal and city planning. Well, just want to make sure that I heard that correctly. So it's going back to basically a grass area, open field. That's
It'll be an open field, yeah. And there was also some community group that when we were originally talking about it, that was worried about the towpath.
Mhm.
And we have a green area that's between us and the towpath, just for the people that are walking or riding bikes.
on the back.
Yeah, the back edge. Yes, you can see the
That's
towpath
quite a
there.
big distance away from there, though, I think, isn't it?
Well, you have the power lines that are overhead, and we didn't want to intrude greatly into that, right under the power lines either.
Right.
We're on the easement for the temporary parking, but we're not under the power lines. And I think the yellow looks like it's maybe a little bit bigger than what the yellow shows, but sure.
Do we get into a height issue with any of this equipment with the power lines?
Yeah.
So we're clearing that easily?
Clear that easily.
Okay.
Because those same power lines, we have to bring the equipment, get under those power lines, get it to our facility.
Okay,
So
great.
we're supportive of this variance. I think the expansion is very important. It's great to see them expanding in the area. But we understand why they need this. For me, it seemed that the bioretention swales that you're proposing at the front of the site seem to be adequate to take care of the drainage, but for some reason, Building and Housing wrote you up for that. Have they seen?
No, they've seen the whole thing. The drainage is fine. The objection was the material.
That it wasn't a paved parking lot, since it is over the amount of time.
But it's temporary.
It is temporary, exactly.
And Madam Chair, Ms. Brown, this is exactly the same kind of thing that we just read before, Cleveland Clinic.
Right.
Same understanding, this is exactly the same type of situation, and that's why we're very supportive of this. And especially great that they're gonna return it back to being grassland. Of course, another expansion there would have been great too. But either way, this is.
And what's your period of time, did you say, from start to
The plan is 20 months. at this
20
time.
months? Okay, so we're 20 months.
And Madam Chair, if I could just ask one question. So
Yes.
that's the reason for the first variance, is just the time frame.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, board, comments? Good, I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval.
Second.
Second. Quick and to the point, awesome, all right. Ms. Kukla, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Holzer?
Yes.
Ms. Roca?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yeah.
Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Calendar number 23-068 is granted. Will be ratified next Monday, and then we will send the appellants a letter.
Great. Thank you for spending the morning with us.
Next time you come, have a dance with you.
I was just gonna say that.
Okay, Madam Chair, let's dismiss that case.
Yes, okay. Dave,
Yes.
that case is being dismissed. No appellant ever showed or came online. So we're dismissing the case.
Madam
which,
Chair, I wanted to also note that I don't think the appellant has been here, it's been on the agenda for 3 times. I don't think the appellant has ever attended one of the meetings. Just
Good point. Okay, so.
Yeah, he hasn't shown up to any of them.
he doesn't show up to court through building and house. He doesn't do it. I'm surprised he filed. He just operates it illegally now. So I'm surprised he even filed for an appeal. He just does what he wants anyway.
I back Dave
Yeah.
up on this. This guy has zero regard for our ordinances, our laws in our neighborhood. This
Okay.
is just one of his monster properties.
Okay. I didn't see that you were on too, Chad, so,
Oh,
so
okay.
thank you both for being, with us and, being patient until we got an answer, so. So that's all we have for you today. Thank you.
All right.
So can he appeal or?
Liz?
So, yes, he still has the ability, that's his due process, he can apply again.
You can appeal.
Liz, I got a question too. How many times can he apply before you won't hear it anymore? I mean, I almost got it. He's counting on not doing this because no one stops him from doing anything. I mean, that's the frustrating part.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if Mr. Riccardi can speak to that. I don't know if there's any limits on Mr. Riccardi, can you give us some insight? Still there.
Yes, once you're denied a variance, your case should not be heard anymore. I mean,
But he wasn't denied.
things happen. I mean, there was a gas station here today that's been denied in the past that, that's going through the process. So, things happen. Plans are very, very minutely changed in order to, run through a loophole. But at this point, it's all on the law department to take it to court. Thank you.
But he hasn't been denied, he just doesn't show up.
Wait a minute.
Right.
Excuse me, our understanding though is that he can't be put into violation, that all the violations through building and housing that exist for the illegal usage have been tabled until the hearing. But if he never has a hearing, the law department won't prosecute those violations.
That's the truth.
Mr. Yesen is counting on that. We've been dealing with him for years. He is counting on that.
So Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Mr. Riccardi, so it's being dismissed today. We update that in our system. So if we wanna, I think I could send an email that Mr. Riccardi could possibly, also just stating that today was dismissed and then we could go forward with, any additional prosecution, any more citations that could come. But as of, once this being dismissed today, I don't believe we have to ratify it. I believe that it's today since they didn't show up. I
Yeah,
can
no.
report that to building and housing.
Right.
Let them know that they can go out and cite. However, they can apply for the permit again, in the future and apply for a variance, so.
Because, he paid the fee
Yeah,
to have the case on the agenda
right,
and
But-
then doesn't show up.
yeah.
So he's burning money every time he does this, so to
Right.
speak.
Well, it's a forfeit, right?
How much is the fee to
Yeah.
have it on the agenda?
It's a change of use, it's $75.
You can work
Yeah,
into the cost
so
of the
it's-
parties he's throwing there. Still.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, to the gentleman, I think it would be all right, for you to contact, Building and Housing and have an inspector go out again, and we can also, if you would like, I can send an email to the director of Building and Housing and let them.
Well, I think we have a serial no-show, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we'll dismiss, we'll notify Building and Housing, and then, Dave, probably through, Deanne, you're gonna wanna pursue it from your end.
Well, right, well, that's
Oh.
building and housing's enforcement on illegal usage. We can't dispatch them, you know what I'm saying? But,
Right, you can't dispatch them, but you can, contact building and housing as well.
Right, just,
And this is Richard Riccardi. Building and Housing is well aware of the violations. I think there's already an active violation notice. It's the policies of the law department. They're the ones that are making the decisions to prosecute and then to take it to housing court. So perhaps, Liz, in those notifications, you may also want to CC the law director. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riccardi.
And if there's any servicing issues, I mean, we know that the guy actually lives about 20 doors directly down the street from the proposed usage here. And I have his phone number. We've spoken with him. He's not hard to get a hold of. So it can't be a servicing thing on anybody's end because all the neighbors know. I mean, he lives down the street. We've spoken with him countless times, Chad and I. I mean, he's a known bad actor in the neighborhood for years. So he knows how to play the system. And that's why I brought up the point that if the building and housing violations are tabled because pending this zoning hearing, and if this just gets bandied about ad infinitum, he'll never see the light of day on any illegal usage prosecution, and he'll just keep using it illegally. I mean, he's found a little loophole, and Chad knows we're not surprised by that.
He has so many violations on all his properties, and he just is able to continue. He did, if you look at that building, I mean, that was in a historic district. He did those improvements. He was cited, and then the case was closed. I mean, it's so frustrating. I mean,
Where is this building in adjacency to the theater?
right next door.
Right
like
next door.
20
Right
feet
next
away.
door. Okay, all right.
And it's a historic district, and those window openings were never prosecuted by building and housing. We have no idea why. Chad and I were the ones that turned it in. And he changed, if you look at the window, just for curiosity's sake, and I know this isn't necessarily a forum, but if you notice the window openings with that brick around it and those Home Depot windows, those aren't even to code if those are bedrooms up there. And nothing ever happened with this because he does a dance with the city that he gets away with it every time.
Okay.
And those neighbors on that street are disgusted because now he's operating a legal party center. They park all up and down the street. There's fights there. There's all kinds of stuff. And there's no one to enforce it because it's been the code enforcement's been tabled pending this hearing.
Okay. I do want to remind you that we are still live and we're on live feed.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So all comments.
The neighbors are disgusted that they're not gonna. No one in that neighborhood is supportive of it. So thank you.
Liz, anything else?
Just that we probably shouldn't take any more testimony with the applicant not.
Right,
And
right.
without everybody being sworn in.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we've covered all the bases we can cover today, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, one moment. Yes.
So am I correct, so the two issues here, or the two options seem to be either you cut him off at some point, like you have a rule, like if you don't show 3 times, you're considered denied, or it's just closed, and then code enforcement can move ahead, or can we go ahead and hear the testimony without him?
I don't think we can. I don't think we've ever heard a case with.
In court, you can. You don't show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would probably have to talk.
So should I see if a lot of everything set up this whole situation?
Yeah, yeah.
So-
Okay, and I think we should probably go to old business now.
Well, one more thing on that,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. If we really wanted to entertain that, we could perhaps hold the dismissal, and if we want to bring it to the table and.
All right.
But what I'll do is I'll just keep it on the old business and we can just ratify it or not next Monday.
Okay.
Or give it a new date if you feel like, so hopefully we can get some idea from.
Okay. That's excellent. So with regard to calendar number 23-029, to you gentlemen, I think, we'll waive dismissal at this point.
We'll dismiss it and we'll hold ratification. Well, we'll ratify next Monday as a decision, similar to the decision.
Yes, exactly. So,
We'll give it 7 more days and then.
so we're gonna give it 7 more days before we ratify it? and then we'll move forward at that point.
Do we need to be present for the ratifying or no?
No.
No,
Okay,
no.
It'll be on the old business.
That it comes up under old business, which is what we're gonna move to now, and that's
Okay.
just something that we handle administratively.
okay, thank you.
All right,
So,
thank you.
but you might, Dave, you might want to touch base with Liz though, just,
Okay.
you know, to fill Danny in.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm keeping him aware. He has a funeral today, but I'm keeping him aware like in real time.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
All right, thank
thank
you.
you.
All right. Anything else?
Business?
Yeah.
No, just old business.
We're on to old business. Okay, old business. We have 1 through 9 and then number 11. So without objection, board?
Without objection.
Awesome. And then Liz, we have the affirmation and the rehearing request.
Yes, so the affirmation is BZA 22-163, garden 7902 Bessemer. This was granted in November of last year. Mr. McMillan was granted variances to use the property for metal storage, scrap metal storage. So he contacted our office and said he's still working with the architect to get the final full drawings completed. So he's still, he needs more time for that.
Okay. So, without objection, board?
Without objection.
Okay, so that's fine. And the rehearing request?
So I did send the letter to you guys in the email. This, if you remember, calendar number 23-011, there was a lot of discussion on February 27th about this. And we officially, the appellant withdrew at the request of the board we assumed that they could work something out with the city, I think. And now it's turning out that they haven't come to a conclusion. So we are bringing, they would like to come back as a rehearing under the same calendar number. And that's what, I guess they want to get testimony on how those discussions were going with the city. They weren't able to come to an agreement.
So this is the one that we basically said you guys need to go back to the table and try and negotiate this.
Right.
And they couldn't.
Sounds like they were not able to.
Did they give you an update on it, Liz? See, I think this is bigger than just talking to licenses and assessments or finance. I think economic development and housing as part of downtown ought to be involved. So my question is, did any of them get involved? Because this is a much bigger issue.
It's complex.
Let me think, so we don't send them notification. I think we would just send notification to the person who, or the department that issued the letter, or any of the documentation that they submitted. We would have just notified.
In the letter from Mansur Gavin, the law firm, they state in the letter that they work with the city, which department, the licensing department.
So licensing, definitely is notified. I'd have to pull the file to give you, I can scan that and send that to you. But if you think you want me to invite the economic development director, I can do this.
Oversees downtown housing. I don't know who does that anymore. Oversees housing for downtown.
Right,
Our department?
No, in the city.
No,
Which
in the
department
city,
does
within the city.
You mean for tax purposes?
No, for development purposes. This has an impact on, at least how I remember this case.
Oh.
On whether you charging in terms of renters.
Oh, that's
It has the impact
Right.
on having a negative impact on building or, you know,
I agree, because it sets a precedent for any other.
we never did it this way before, and now
Right.
you're going back and collecting money after they didn't have the rules and the records, it has a big impact.
Right, right, because the look back is 3 years
Yeah.
or longer.
Right, but our purview is just to determine if the city was arbitrary or capricious when.
Right.
You know, they did something illegal.
I believe the director wrong would be, I mean, director of. I still, I think it still would fall under city planning.
Yeah.
With respect to the housing issue, and then the licensing, the assessment of the fees would be.
Yeah.
But I say let them come back. I mean, that's the question you're asking.
Right, that's the bottom line question. Do we want to have them, allow them to come back?
Yeah, they should have a hearing, right?
Yeah,
So-
they should have their due process.
I think just to be clear, let's have a vote on this,
Sure.
okay? So,
We want to move that we.
I move
Yeah.
to rehear the calendar number 23-011.
I second.
okay,
Ms. Holzer?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Roca?
Yes.
Ms. Bates?
yes,
All right, so we can give it to June 26th. That's a little, almost, yeah, it's a month and a half. And I will contact Director Wong and see.
I think that's an excellent idea. See what her feeling is on this in terms of,
If we should invite anyone.
yeah, if any other essentially stakeholders need to be at the table for this. I mean, cause we can make a judgment on what's within our purview, but it sets a precedent for similar housing situations throughout the city. So I think, it has some far-reaching ramifications in that regard.
All right.
All right, anything else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned.
So next week,